I'd like to call this meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. It is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. Our new fiscal officer, Jeff Baker. Jeff, would you please call the roll to confirm that all the trustees are here?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Raj, you'll have to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Raj. Mr. Unger?
Here?
Mr. Wallert?
Here.
Thank you. If you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Of the United States of America, to the Republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If those in the room would remain standing for meditation. Half of our fellow citizens right now are furloughed or have had their hours cut at work. The churches are voluntarily closed. There's lines outside of stores and there's many empty shelves when you once get in the store. You know, there's a good part of this world that knows this is an everyday way of life. They've never known freedom. Here in America, we are not used to this, and I hope we never get used to it. We're meeting tonight pursuant to House Bill 197, which allows us to temporarily meet electronically. We are a freedom-loving people, and we're going to continue to have these meetings. I'd just like to read a short little quote that hangs on the refrigerator at my home, and it means a lot. And what that is we live in a land of plenty. The all-wise giver of every good thing bestows on his unworthy subjects the necessities and comforts of life. Yet how little do we appreciate the unbounded love and mercies, both spiritual and temporal, he is constantly bestowing upon us. I blush at my ingratitude, especially when I am disposed to complain at my lot and consider it a hard one. I know it's pretty tough for many of our families out there, but this will be over soon enough. We are a great country and we will continue to be. So thank you. Mr. Baker.
Board. I have 3 different minutes to approve for this evening. First would be the special meeting of March 10th.
And I would motion that we approve the minutes of the special meeting on March 10th.
Raj,
This is Wallard. I'll second.
And Raj, you're on mute again.
And Unger has motioned and Matt Wallard has seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Wallert?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Also have on March 10th the regular meeting. Would like to motion that we approve those.
I would motion that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting on March 10th.
I will second that, Wallard.
Matt Wallard has seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Wallert?
Aye.
And lastly, I have the minutes from the meeting on March 16th.
I would motion that we approve the minutes from the meeting on March 16th, 2020.
I second it.
It's been motioned by Mr. Unger, seconded by Mr. Rajagopal. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Wallert?
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next item I'll put on our Administrator, Jeff Mills.
Very good. Good evening, board. Welcome to what is certainly a historic board we've ever had in our 226-year history, a meeting such as this. So we're breaking new ground this evening, but the business of the township must go on, and so I appreciate all of you here and keeping the train moving here. So we're going to begin this evening's agenda with a set of presentations. First presentation is related to the COVID-19 outbreak and an update on our current response measures. That presentation will be given jointly by Chief Frank Cook and Chief Khan and Captain Packer.
Hello, Chief Cook. I would like to mention to those watching at home that due to the fact that we need to maintain less than 10 people in a space, there are Mr. Mills, myself, and Jeff Baker are sitting at the table about 10 feet apart. And we have 3 folks from our fire department in the audience sitting apart. So there are 6 of us in the room, along with our program director, Dana from Waycross in the back room. So there's only 7 of us in the room. But please go ahead, Frank.
Good evening, Board. In reporting on the COVID pandemic, we've heard countless times the terms unprecedented and uncertainty or uncertain times. That, in fact, they are. Many of us that serve in public safety agencies have trained and studied various types of disaster. And certainly this township has experienced many human-caused, many natural-caused disasters. And this pandemic that we're living through right now is considered a form of a disaster. I don't think anybody would have ever thought that we would see anything like this in the United States. But it's here, it's real, and those that have studied and trained emergency management, we go through planning, response, mitigation, recovery. Those are all steps in the emergency management cycle. And certainly we've stepped up as a township, and each of our departments have stepped up to continue to serve this township. Within the fire department, the agency that takes the lead on emergency management in the township, we have all of our employees have stepped up to ensure that we continue to provide good quality service. But 2 individuals I'd like to introduce this evening, Battalion Chief Steve Khan, who acts as the department's public information officer, and also the spokesperson for the township, and then Captain Shane Packard, who oversees the department's emergency medical services. Both these individuals have stepped up to deliver a quality information, make sure that the information continues to flow on a daily basis. And they've just have gone over and beyond their normal duties. And at this time, I'd like to have Captain Packer step up and discuss the situational status, and then followed by discuss public information.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Board, Administration. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve. When we were meeting and preparing our response measures in February and early March, we were making preparations and response measures based on public health isolation measures, preparing for a case here or a case there. Since then, the state has recognized and the county's recognized that we've had community-wide spread. Therefore, our preparation and response has transitioned to make adjustments to these mitigation measures. These mitigation measures are in place to continue to slow the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Fortunately, the state has reported that we are so far successfully flattening the curve, if you will. They are now projecting our peak to be mid to late May. Peak cases somewhere around 2,000 new cases per day. So that is something that we continue to plan here regionally as well with our network. Something that we will continue to monitor daily and report out with our administrative team meetings daily as well. On top of that, some reassuring news, if you will. The CDC has reported, that once again, when they talked about over 80% are mild symptoms that do not require hospitalization. So of those 80% that experience mild symptoms, that is something that can be handled by a primary care physician or through telehealth. And of those 20% that may require hospitalization, 5 of those would be required for critical beds. This is for the critical bed shortage. That's why we see the build out of the hospital capacity based on the critical bed shortage. And based on the most recent report, 90% of those that require hospitalization are those that in the high-risk population, the elderly, and those with pre-existing conditions, such as either cardiac disease and diabetes. So this is something that we just want to reinforce to everyone that as groups continue to take extra precautions to keep your home and your workplace safe and healthy. And for that, I'll turn it to Chief Ron.
Not a, so, the things we talked about was goes into the types of information that we're going to be releasing and the types of engagement that we're going to be doing within the community. One of the things we talked about right off the bat was making sure that we stayed in our lane, making sure that the information we were going to give out was from trusted and vetted resources. So in doing so, we sort of set the framework up for the following. We were going to focus mainly with our township administrator, or excuse me, our township information coming out was going to deal mainly with preparation, response, and recovery. When we get to that point, when we start doing recovery, we felt that getting the information based from Ohio Department of Health, the Hamilton County Health Department, part of the Emergency Management Agency, we were going to be releasing information based on, or that dealt with the preparation, the ways to mitigate the virus and the social distancing and the isolations and reducing the exposure, that type of information. We felt that the Hamilton County Department of Health, Public Health, is the responsible agency for releasing information based on specific numbers of cases throughout their district, throughout the county, which again, we need to make sure that we realize that the Hamilton County Public Health Department does not include Cincinnati, Norwood, or the city of Springdale, as they also have their own health departments. So when we look at Hamilton County Health Department, that does not, and they have their numbers, that does not take into account those 3 cities because they have their own system that they're working within. We are to the point now where we continue to reinforce the measures of reducing the possibility of spread. We are continuing to put information out there in terms of the information from Ohio Department of Health. And, you know, when we get positive news like what Dr. Acton and Governor DeWine has been saying over the past couple of days, that we have significantly flattened that curve, that shows us that we're doing the right things. At the same time, we are also trying to make sure that we're engaging our community. And as the public information officer, one of my jobs is to oversee the other information that's coming out. This does not necessarily mean that I have to be the one that is always putting stuff on the Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, but that information does come through me. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to expand a little bit and do some community engagement things with Tawana and namely Tawana getting out with her program with the cabin fever reliever program on our Facebook, which is ingenious, and she does a great job with that. She's been able to put some articles out there, and she's just a great writer anyway. But so we're doing the community engagement in that thing. But you have to realize that all that stuff that is coming out has been vetted through us and the administrative team that meets every single morning for the past month or so, with the exception of weekends. Although I will tell you, there hasn't been a weekend that's gone by that we've all been in contact with each other several times through a weekend. So we're at this point right now that we are making responses in Colerain Township. our residents through our 911 calls. And we are making, I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, anywhere from 4 to 10 a day where they meet some type of criteria that possibly could be COVID-19 related. We aren't going to know those exact numbers until a couple days down the road. So now is we treat everybody that has any type of a medical symptom that like they are possibly a positive patient, which is really no different than we've done for the past 30 years. I've lived through the HIV, through the hepatitis B, C, SARS, and all that stuff, and we've done the same thing. We get the information, we prepare accordingly. We have the PPE that we need right now, and we're treating everybody appropriately. We're seeing a flattened number through the state, so we're still seeing that we think that this we're not going to hit that peak of 8 to 10,000. We're thinking we might be getting about 1,500 or so per day at the peak, which is probably going to be coming in about 2 to 3 weeks still. And then once we get past that, we'll start talking about recovery. But I know that part of that planning process for any kind of a disaster is we always have to start planning for recovery as soon as we start planning for the disaster. So we are also discussing what we have to do in terms of the recovery. And one of the things that we take into account is this community is pretty resilient, and we've seen a lot over the years, and we know that they'll be part of that recovery process. So that's an overview of where we've been over the past month. It's been a long month, probably a month into about a 4 or 5 month long process, I think, as we continue to go through this. But I think we're up to the task.
Thanks, Steve. I think you've done a great job from where we were 2 or 3 weeks ago at our March 10th and March 16th meetings. As this all sort of evolve and roll out, and you've shown some real leadership. And for those watching, Steve is our public information officer. And as he said, everything flows through him to authenticate any information. So thanks for doing such great work. I didn't know if the other trustees had any comments.
Mr. Unger,
Good.
I just like to reiterate the fantastic job you guys are doing. And you're managing to make some of it interesting too. I loved, I think that Chief Khan might have gone viral from his den there, which was outstanding. I do have a question though. You'd mentioned 1,500 per day, and I just want to make clear for people that are listening, that would be new cases per day in the state of Ohio, right?
That's according to the Ohio Department of Health. They're looking at the possibility as we start reaching that flattened portion of the peak of about 1,500 new cases per day. But again, that's all statewide. And again, that's very contingent upon the availability of testing and things of that nature. But yes, about 1,500 a day, which is down from about 10,000 a day is what they anticipated.
Absolutely. But you guys are doing a fantastic job. God bless you, and all of you. Please stay healthy. And if there's anything we can do, let us know.
I'm going to give a little shameless plug to the people we meet every morning. And I know you just met Captain Packer. He comes every morning. He watches the state and the county's press briefings. He comes every day with a mountain of data and a mountain of information. And that's what we're basing everything off of as we continue to plan for this forward process. It's that we couldn't do it without the team, and this is not a one-person band. I'll tell you that.
Steve, Dan, let me give some comment. Hey, Steve and the chief, you all can hear me? Hello? Okay. You guys are really doing a very dedicated service for our township and keeping our township very safe. And also, it is remarkable that our personnel were keeping safe, also protecting them. And the calls I get from the residents is amazing, praising how wonderful service you guys are doing for our township, for the residents. Every calls you get, you respond to it. That's a great, amazing work. And also, like I said before, you're really protecting our personnel so they can serve our people longer. Thanks for your service.
Sure. Things we did when we started getting into this was our fire department administration sat down to make sure that we had the units in place, we had the personnel in place, that they could be easily adjusted if we saw a huge spike in responses in a certain location of the township. With one phone call, we could shift personnel around, units around to get certain, maybe an increased number of ambulances in one area or another. And that's, you know, on top of the PPE that we've had to make sure that we've got enough of. Right now, we're protecting our people. Our fire stations have never been cleaner. I'll tell you that. The kitchens have never been cleaner. And, you know, and I will tell you that we're practicing the same thing that we're seeing here. Our stations, you'll see the same thing. Our people, we usually eat together at one big table with 11 people. We're splitting up. We got some people eating here, some people eating there at different times. We've changed everything the way we've typically done things, and we can't wait for things to get back to normal. And I know everyone else feels the same way. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. The next presentation is a presentation on the potential financial impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on Colerain Township. I'd like to start by talking about the impacts to our revenues and then move to impacts to our expenses. Several weeks ago,
And Jeff, I would like to mention that we did receive questions for the public comment of this meeting, and several of those questions deal with the financial impact. So those of you that asked those questions, here comes the answer right now, a little bit earlier in the meeting. So please go ahead.
Sure. So early on in this crisis, our team got together and started to try to understand how this was going to impact the township's finance. I think it's really important to understand that this event changes every day, and so you know, the information that we collected on revenues, for example, is from April 3rd, and it's already out of date. That was just 11 days ago. Things have changed and continue to change rapidly. So it's really important as I make these comments for everybody to remember that we're dealing with a great deal of uncertainty, and these are all subject to change. They're just a snapshot in time of our thinking, but I think it's worthwhile to share. So as it relates to revenues, the bottom line is we are anticipating a decrease in revenues of approximately $1.4 million due to the COVID-19. Now that could have changed already. 950,000 of that was earmarked for the Megaland Playground project. So to give you a sense, you know, it's $450,000 of other revenue that we were at this time projecting a decrease of. I want to tell everyone just a brief synopsis of where our revenues come from, because it's really important to understand, especially as we hear horror stories from the city of Cincinnati, who has a great reliance on income tax. They have, I don't know, 20 workforce. The Hamilton County, which has a heavy reliance on sales tax, which is both of those are volatile revenue sources. They are talking about 20% reductions across the board at the county. We are not in that position. I want to make that really clear. We are not in that position because about 50%, 47.9% of all of our revenue comes from the property tax, which is considered a very stable form of revenue. About 14% of our revenue comes from licenses, permits, and fees. That's cable franchise fees, solid waste fees, EMS billing are big ones. Let's see, 13.7% of our revenue is called intergovernmental. These things are transfers of revenue from one government to another. So think of the local government fund, think of the gas tax, think of state grants, think of motor vehicle license tax. Those are intergovernmental revenues. You know, 6% approximately of our revenue is termed miscellaneous. This is related to contracts for police services, drug seizures, employee share of health insurance falls into this, and then all other revenue is about 1.5%, and that's investment earnings, special assessments, fines and forfeitures, etc. So that's how we get the money that it takes to provide the service to Colerain Township, and those are fairly stable, which is why we are not facing the same situations that you hear about in Hamilton County in the city. To dig into this a little bit deeper, as I mentioned, we were anticipating a bottom line loss of approximately $1.4 million. We anticipate the state of Ohio is going to have to make some hard decisions about programmatic spending and may, I say may, reallocate portions of their capital budget. If I had to rate this as low, medium, or high risk, I'd probably rate it as a medium risk to low risk. It's still a risk of us losing it, but it's certainly not a foregone conclusion. That accounts for 950,000 of that 1.4 million reduction in revenue we were projecting. We believe that the gas tax revenues will be down. Currently, we're anticipating a 20% reduction in our budgeted revenue from the gas tax. That comes to $142,000 approximately from below budgeted. Additional revenue loss could come in the form of the government fund, which is funded through state sales tax. We're anticipating a 25% reduction in revenue to that line. That's $124,000. We're also anticipating significant reductions in rentals, leases of the community center, shelters, and ball fields. We believe that, well, at the time, as of April 3rd, we believe that property taxes would come in at projected levels. I received a letter today from Hamilton County Auditor Dusty Rhodes, who suggested that we budget for a 10% reduction in our second half revenues for property. Fortunately, the second half comes in a little bit less than the first half, so it doesn't really mean an annualized decrease of 5%. We are not projecting any decreases in our revenues from investments at this time. Our investment management firm certainly did not see a global pandemic coming, but they did see lower interest rates coming. And so they had been transitioning our investments to other investment vehicles and asset classes, which has positioned us well with respect to our investment income. However, looking forward, we may have to make significant adjustments to our forecasted revenues for future years, 21 and out, for what appears to be a long period of even lower interest rates in the future. Hamilton County, as I mentioned, is preparing plans for a 20% reduction across all departments. We do not depend on Hamilton County for revenues outside of federal pass-through money on the block grants. The CDBG funding should not be impacted by this event. One potential exposure that we have is on the expense side. We'll talk about here in a minute. With the comm center. In 2015, the county increased their detail rates in the middle of the year. That could happen again. I hope it does not. I'm a member of the Hamilton County Communications Center Board of Advisors, and I continue to advocate against that action because it hurts first responders specifically. And now is not the time to increase comm center fees in the middle of a crisis that we need our first responders to have all the resources that they can. So that summarizes our look at revenues. Again, a snapshot in time. We'll continue to update the board as things evolve. As it relates to expenses, there are roughly 20 lines in our budget that we are expecting to see a direct increase as a result of the COVID-19 event, approximately $200,000. The following is sort of a general description of those lines. So we need to buy additional PPE. We've heard about this in the news all the time, face masks and gowns, etc. Anticipate having to spend about $100,000 on additional personal protective equipment. We're going to need to refund a number of rentals. Folks who have rented our community center for weddings and park shelters for events. We're gonna probably need to increase rental refunds by $30,000. We needed to purchase additional cleaning supplies. We anticipate needing to purchase about $21,000 worth of additional cleaning supplies. We need to purchase additional park supplies, about $12,000. Particularly due to increased in dog bags. If you've been down to the to the dog center, there's a lot of traffic there. We also need to rent portalets, and we need to do increased maintenance on our trails to pick up trash, etc. Unemployment compensation. While no employees are recommended for furlough, part-time staff have seen a reduction in hours and may be eligible for unemployment. Should this occur, the township could reasonably expect to see an increase in unemployment compensation. Indigent burials. So if someone dies and does not have the means to bury themselves and there's no next of kin, it is incumbent upon the township to pay for the burial. We don't know how much that's going to increase, but we're anticipating $8,000 increase in indigent burial. Postage, $4,000 increase due to various public meetings, notices, and other related projects which have been placed on hold and we need to renotice. Teleconferencing equipment and costs, small increase, maybe $1,000 increase there. So other cost neutral negative items related to the impound lot, Northgate Mall, Walmart, off-duty details, things like that. Those are cost neutral, so they weren't included in this analysis. There may be a small hit, but that effect would be felt on the revenue side. In terms of positive budgetary impacts of the event, we have the trustees decided not to include an additional maintenance worker in the final organizational chart for 2020. This position was included in the budget and is a savings of $90,000 to the gas tax fund. Fuel. The cost of fuel has dropped dramatically over the past month. All departments can expect to see a reduction in these costs. We believe that we'll save about $22,000 in fuel this year, about 8% savings. Staffing costs. The township's not going to incur overtime costs for shelter rentals and community center events. We believe that we'll achieve an all-in savings of about $16,000 due to that. And then utilities, with the decrease in our use of township buildings, we'll probably save about $1,000 in utilities. So those are the major expense impacts. But there's also some pretty big variables out there. One of which is what happens if an entire shift or squad in our police or fire department is impacted by COVID and needs to quarantine. They would need to quarantine for 2 weeks. And we have 33 employees, 14-day quarantine, 5 shifts, and we have to cover that with that would cost the township $130,000 approximately. So that's, if something awful were like that, that is a major variable. The 911 detail rate, as I mentioned, it could go up. A $5 increase in the detail rate for 6 months would increase costs by about $113,000. And then future flare-ups. So, we don't know where this thing is going. We don't know how this is gonna go. If there's a future flare-up, that throws all these numbers in a different direction. So, we, trustees, as you are digesting all of this information, direction for you. There's a all level of uncertainty about state capital funding, as I mentioned, with Megaland. The recommendation would probably be to hold tight and see where the capital budget goes with Megaland. With summer camp, this program costs about $20,000 a year. To the extent that social distancing is still in effect, it may be difficult to move forward with summer camp. We need guidance on whether or not to move forward with the hiring process for summer camp employees because that's coming down the pike. It doesn't have to be tonight, but direction on that. Additional road projects. With permanent appropriations, the trustees added about $600,000. We are estimating a loss of about $143,000 in gas tax revenue. So guidance from the board on whether to draft bid specs for these projects or to plan to cancel them. We're talking about the $300,000 mill and fill project in Mount Healthy Heights, residential streets, Roosevelt, Grant, Lincoln, up that way. $200,000 in cape sealing, $56,000 for stormwater catch basins, and $50,000 in additional road paint, traffic indicators, road lines, etc. So those are things that we would be looking for. Also in the budget, there was $20,000 to fix the 275 overpass sign. Do we want to continue to do that? Training and travel, to the extent that there's a long-term travel ban, the township may realize additional savings there. Capital items, you could consider a hold on all capital purchases. However, the expense items don't disappear. They likely will result in larger capital budgets in the future. So keep that in mind. And other initiatives and projects. So I think the bottom line here is that we are in a good place, and we're in a good place objectively and also particularly relative to the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. But we are going to need to probably reprioritize some things. We do not need furloughs, and everybody it continues to work to serve the residents of Colerain Township. That is my presentation on the financial impacts of COVID, and I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for your presentation, Jeff Mills. Raj or Matt, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mills, thank you so much. I know that I pretty much the first day we shut down, I was like, all right, give me a list of what this is going to cost. And you did a fantastic job and I appreciate it. I did have a chance to nose around about the Megaland project, and I had thought a couple weeks ago that it would be a foregone conclusion we'd lose that money, but I think it's right to classify that as a low chance, because it is a capital budget item, and I was I was very happy to hear that information. With regard to, and this is just kind of a silly question. So we added the portalettes to the parks, and I get the idea why. I wonder if there's a larger health question. Are the portalettes cleaner than the restrooms?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, that might be one of those unintended, I mean, we have to close the restrooms, we were told to. But that might be an unintended consequence of that. I don't know. On a good day, portalettes oftentimes aren't quite as clean as we'd like. So I don't know the answer to that. Maybe something that we should look at. Yeah, I think as far as the summer program goes, I mean, I think it's fruitless to go hiring for that now, because we don't know where we're going to be with this. And kind of my philosophy you'll hear from me tonight is that anything we can kick down the road, the more time that passes, the more information we're going to have on it. And that's kind of my view on that. And we can talk about it. We can discuss that later. So, yeah, I think that's about it. But again, thank you so much for putting that information together. It's very thorough, and it gives us a good idea where we're going.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, Jeff. Okay, is somebody talking? Dane, I want to make a comment. That's a good analysis, Jeff. He talked about 1.4 million decrease you anticipate, but that figure seems to be pretty logical figure you come up with. And now we got to be very careful. We got still about 8 more months left. It's a unpredictable timing right now. When this virus actually decline, we're still seeing increase of the death. The mortality rate is going high, and it's not coming down. So we don't know. They'll peak in May. So we have to be very careful in spending. So we'll have a very efficient government to run. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal.
Raj, okay, Jeff Mills, our next item.
Very good. The next item is an update on crime statistics by Police Chief Mark. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Wanted to make sure we touch base on this because we had an increase in January, so I wanted to keep the board appraised on where we were with our crime rate. Obviously, with everything going on, our call volume is down, but we still do have crime occurring, so I want to make sure we touch base with you. For March, we had an increase of 2 violent crimes in the entire township, and an increase of 23 property crimes. So total crime was actually reduced 16% month over month over last year. The only crime category that showed any kind of a rise is breaking and entering. We had 4 additional offenses, and our largest reduction in anything was theft, which is kind of stands to reason with the reduction in the stores being open. This year, we've had 56% of all of our thefts are retail theft, and only our 5 beat and our 1 beat had violent crimes for March. 2 were in the 5 beat and 3 were in the 1 beat.
Next item, Mr. Mills.
Very good. The next item, I'll bring up,
Thanks. Sorry. Next, I'd like to invite Fire Chief Frank Cook to report out on a project that he was tasked with to look into the future and identify the big needs for the next 5 years or so in the fire department, and also to provide a brief financial outlook.
So this evening's presentation entails a needs assessment overview, as Mr. Mills said, for the department into the future. Part of the department's and the township's strategic planning process and initiatives and objectives and goals. We've looked at our capital needs over the next 5 to 10 years and have determined that our facilities need to be addressed. We have the vehicles, apparatus, and equipment that's going to need to be addressed. And then staffing for the future will need to be addressed. I will say, having met individually with the board, we discussed these matters over a couple hours with each board member. So for the sake of time this evening, I have a very somewhat brief presentation, an overview, if you will. This is certainly a subject that I could address over an hour and a half, 2 hours easily. So we'll go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So the department has provided fire protection to the township for a considerable amount of time. The department, as we know it today, materialized out of 2 separate volunteer fire departments. Those departments serve the Grospect area at 3360 West Galbraith Road, and also the Dunlap area where the station was located at its current location at Kemper and Colerain Avenue. Both those buildings that you see illustrated there on the screen, station still serves it. And elements, if you look behind the walls in certain areas of the station at the Dunlap station, you'll still see elements of that station still existing today. Next slide, please. Currently, the department serves the township from 5 firehouses located throughout the township. The upper left-hand corner is Station 102, again, at Kemper Lane. Upper right-hand corner, Station 103, that's our newest fire station, located on Kemper Road at Pippin. In the center, Station 25, located on Springdale in the Northbrook area. Lower left-hand corner, Station 103, in the Peach Grove neighborhood, and then down in the lower right-hand corner is Station 26, serving the Grospect area. Three of the 5 stations are what I would consider in need of significant attention. Station 102, estimated construction was in the 1950s. And then Station 26, which is estimated to be constructed in the 1960s. Station 25, I think it was built sometime in the mid-70s. It was actually, during the volunteer days, it was just a 3-bay standalone firehouse. It has since been added on to twice, addition. The fire department administration was housed in that building at one time. The section that's in the forefront of the picture there to the left housed the department's administration. And then during the early 90s, a 3rd addition was put onto the rear of the administration side. Like I said, 4 of the 5 firehouses served as volunteer firehouses. Station 103 during the 1990s. Transition from volunteer to 24-hour staffing. The need was there to be able to accommodate that 24-hour staffing. So significant revisions, remodels were done to the four stations. Next slide, please. Two additional facilities that the department operates. At the top row there is our training facility. That's a burn building and training tower. As you can see, that's where we do much of our training, hands-on practical training evolutions. And we burn in that building, we ladder the building, and over time, the weather, the changing in temperature, especially in the burn side, take their toll on the building. You've got expansion and contraction of the materials. And right now, that building's approximately 21, 22 years old. And certainly, it's going to require some attention. Over the past couple of years, we have stuck a significant amount of money making repairs to it, but there's additional repairs that must be done in order for us to be able to operate out of this facility for many, many, many years in the future. The lower row of pictures, that's our training facility. That facility was donated to us by Procter & Gamble. When Procter & Gamble occupied that building, it was their regional computer center. Once the technology changed and Miami Valley Labs started to decrease their operation on East Miami River Road, they donated the property and the building to the fire department, to the township. As it stands today, that building requires a significant amount of maintenance. The roof system has failed in it. With the help of the Rumpke Corporation, who occupied a portion of the building with the fire department, also funded some of the repairs in it. But it's a lot more building than really what the fire department needs. And quite frankly, it's become a somewhat of a, like I said, it's quite expensive to maintain. And the sheer fact that it's somewhat off the beaten path, it's up in the far northern part of the township, and it's just really not conducive for us to conduct training events as we would if we were more centrally located. Next slide, please. The next series of slides I'd like to discuss with you is it's pretty much deficiencies and characteristics that are common throughout three of our five fire stations. In the slide before you right now just shows how tight our quarters are, our storage side for the fire apparatus. Over the years, certainly fire apparatus has grown in size compared to what it once was, and it takes up quite a bit of space. As you can see on the left-hand the left-hand photo there, there's not very much walking room in front of the apparatus or even between. As you can see, all our doors are shut. It's common for firefighters to keep their doors open, have their turnout gear by their riding position in a state of readiness to be able to respond in a expedited manner whenever the alarm rings. And again, this is characteristic through three of the five fire stations. Next slide, please. This is Station 109, our newest station. As you can see, there's only two garage doors there, but we have actually three pieces of apparatus stored in there. That's just because we lack the necessary space to be able to store all of our equipment. The two outside pieces, those are frontline, ready to exit in an emergency. And then the middle piece is a spare engine. But the fact that we're storing equipment and vehicles, not exactly what the station was designed for. Next slide, please. This is Station 102. Again, this was a station that was constructed for volunteers. Apparatus at that time was much smaller. As you can see, um, this slide to the left there shows the minimal amount of distance between the back wall of the firehouse and the tailboard of the fire apparatus. Actually, two people cannot pass um, side by side in that space. My guess is about 24 inches back there. And if you look down the right side of the apparatus, our hose that extracts our diesel exhaust, it hampers uh, the firefighters getting to their riding positions on the right side. So, that's, like I said, the space challenges that we have. Again, it's characteristic across three of the five firehouses. Next slide, please. And this is just some storage at Station 25. On the left-hand slide there, you can see we have storage right up against the electrical service panels, the switching box for the generator. Quite frankly, this is all a violation of the fire code to have materials stored in front of these service boxes. But consequently, there's just no space in the firehouse to be able to store these materials. Same way down the right side there of the ladder truck there on the right photo. Again, we're doing our best to use the space that we have available, but essentially it's a house of clutter is what it is. It really is. And so this just demonstrates our space, our lack of space, and the need for additional space within the fire stations. Next slide, please. The slide there on the left, Station 25. It's like I said, it's been under 3 different renovations or had 2 additional add-ons to it. And at a time, the fire department's administration was housed at that station. But quite frankly, the building right now, as it stands, is just a bunch of little offices. It's very hard to work out of. It really is. I've spent about I would think 30 years of my career at that station, 29 or 30 years, and Lord, I'd love to have been a door salesman for that building. It's just so many doors that you have to maneuver through, and it really slows down the response times for the guys to get to the apparatus. This is just a picture of one office there on the left. It's about the size of most residential closets. That's an area that, that we're operating out of. If you can see on the left-hand side of the picture, that's the door. And, to the right, there's a desk. One person only can operate in that room. The picture there to the right, if you look in the center up towards the top of it, um, are 3 stations, 25s, 102s, and 26s. Water problems, we've got roof leaks, and that just showing the damage there of moisture and water infiltration into the space. Next slide, please. Exterior of the building, certainly the weather has taken its toll on the exterior of the buildings. If you look right above the window, there in the picture to the right, I'm going to guess that water has seeped in there, and through the freeze and thaw cycles, the lintel that spans that opening has expanded out, and it's also very rusty. But it's just not held up to the elements. The picture on the left, you can see the brick veneer is starting to separate, and if in my examination of the building, as you walk around, there is much work that needs to be done on the brick veneer of that building. Just to the left of the window there, it's going to require some tuck pointing, and actually to repair those lintels, there's several of those lintels around the building that are going to be in need of repair. And while I'm not a mason, I do know that in order to replace those lintels properly, that brick veneer will have to be removed, and then that metal that serves as those lintels, spans those openings, will have to be replaced. Next slide, please. And this is just the condition of our parking and driveway surfaces in all the firehouses. You know, the Public Works is crack sealed as best they could, but the condition of the asphalt surfaces continues to deteriorate. So, like I said, this is common amongst our firehouses, and it certainly needs to be addressed. Next slide, please. All righty. So what we're proposing as far as facilities are concerned is a new Station 26 and a new Station 102. We currently have property up on the Rumpke development site there for Station 102. And then Station 26, we've outgrown those facilities, and they're just not up to date to standards. They lack ADA accessibility requirements, and they're just the basic elements of operation of those buildings, the mechanical systems, the plumbing, the electrical, HVAC. They're just becoming a lot of cost associated with maintaining those buildings. And then the space, the living space, the apparatus space, the storage space, it's just not conducive for today's as a fire station facility. And then Station 25, what we're recommending is a remodel of that station, possibly gutting the interior of it and just kind of revising or reutilizing that space to make it more conducive for operations today. And then the training center, under the ideal situation, what we'd like to see, and I mentioned before, a centrally located training facility that we could hold classroom events. We could have some storage there to alleviate the fire stations from not being so crowded, and storage on top of storage and in improper places. So, those are some of the, just again, an overview of what we've identified during our assessment of the facilities of the department. Apparatus and vehicle needs, as we foresee it, what you see there in front of you now is one of three pumpers that were purchased back in the early 2001. Obviously, we're getting to the point where those trucks are going to be 20 years old. Historically, we've been able to get 20, 25 years, even longer in some cases, out of our apparatus. And because we have a proactive fleet maintenance service program, the individuals that work in our fleet services division, there's none better. I mean, those guys just do a bang up job when it comes to maintaining our fleet. But eventually, components of the equipment becomes obsolete. As technology advances, safety requirements advance. It's predicted that these apparatus, these three in particular, are going to need to be replaced in the next 5 years or so. Next slide, please. Additionally, those are our water tankers. Water tankers are very critical to our operation. We have a significant amount of the township, including the highways and U.S. roadways, that don't have fire hydrants. So in order for us to be able to provide fire protection, we have to truck the water in. As you may know, we are an ISO Class 1 fire department. And ISO, when they come in, they evaluate us both on our hydrant area and our non-hydrant area. And when we were evaluated on our non-hydrant area, we also are a Class 1, which is very rare. It's very rare that you go into departments that has the rural area or the rural area that we have to cover, and it's very infrequent that you see Class 1 ratings in both areas. And so, that's something that we're pretty proud of, that the fact that we're able to provide fire protection effectively in the rural areas by being able to supply water at a rate that can keep up with the fire flow to fight the fires. Now, we only have the two 1,500-gallon vehicles, but they're 1989 vintage. And as I mentioned before, parts and elements of the truck become obsolete. And this is what we're facing with here. The International DT466 powertrain in these vehicles, they're no longer made by International. And, so it's something that we're going to have to give consideration to in the future to replacing these vehicles. Next slide, please. Our ambulances, this is our bread and butter right here. EMS, emergency medical services, they provide upwards of 75% of our run activity. And these guys are constantly on the road with these ambulances. And so we incorporated a program several years ago to where we remount our ambulances. And we do one unit a year is what the plan developed by our fleet manager, Mike Adler. And we've had a lot of success in remounting these ambulances. The remounting process saves us about 50% every time we remount one versus purchasing a brand new one. Next slide, please. So the ambulances are returned to the manufacturer in Van Wert, Ohio. As you can see in the top picture, what happens is the old ambulance is taken up there. They actually remove the body off of the ambulance chassis, the truck chassis. The two bottom photographs shows the prep work. Once the body is removed from the chassis, they completely go over the body, take care of any body deficiencies that need to be addressed. As you can see, all the doors, all the lights, everything is removed from there. The interior is given a complete overhaul as well. The floor is taken out. All repairs are made, new lighting, and it's just like receiving a brand new ambulance when it comes back, but at half the cost. Next slide, please. So here's the finished product as it's going through its final stages, the remounting process. Like I said, you take an old ambulance and it's rechassied, and you come out of there with a brand new ambulance. You would not be able to tell if you put a brand new one next to a remounted one side by side. It would be very difficult for you to distinguish between the two of them. So that's just a little insight on some of the measures that we've taken to save cost over the years, but in order to keep good, reliable, quality equipment on the road to deliver the most amount of our work that we put on the road every day. Next slide, please. Next area I'd like to concentrate on or discuss is our daily staffing. So on a daily basis, we have an authorized strength of 33 personnel. Now with those 33 personnel, keep in mind that I've got 40 or 42 seats on all of our first out equipment. So if you take the engines, the ladder, the ambulances, and put the required amount of people on there to be able to effectively and efficiently provide the service, I've got 40 to 42 seats that I have to fill. And as you can see, I'm making it happen with 33. So of the 33 are 25 career, 7 of those serve in supervisory positions, and 18 are firefighter paramedics, and then 8 of those positions are part-time. Now, what we do to address those filling of the seats or to be able to get those units out the door is we do what we call cross-staffing. So if, for instance, the first out ambulance goes out of station 25 with 2 people, that will leave 8 people back, 4 for the ladder and 4 for the engine. But if there's a second ambulance, it's assigned to to station 25. If for some reason that unit, which it frequently does, gets called out on a second run in the area, then I have to take people from the engine company and then people from the ladder company to staff that. So now I've reduced my my staffing on both those companies. Now, while it gets the job done, there's consequences with that. Ideally, when we roll out the doors on the ladder truck or an engine company, we want to have those trucks fully staffed. And studies have shown that a fully staffed engine company, a fully staffed ladder company is most effective and most efficient when operating on the fire ground. Next slide, please. So looking at our run volume last year, as you can see, our combined incidents were upwards of over 10,000. So exactly 10,358 runs, 8,453 emergency medical incidents, and 1,905 fire incidents. So we're averaging about 28 runs a day, every 51 minutes. And each year, those total incidents increase. So about a 6% increase over the previous year. Next slide, please. And I talked about the number of seats that I have to fill, and that's with the resources that are listed up there. Those 6 medic transport units, 5 engine companies, 1 ladder, 1 heavy rescue unit, the 2 water tankers, boats, and the battalion chief that serves as the shift commander out of the District 25 vehicle. Next slide, please. So in 1991, the department staffed the fire stations with 25 people. That was from 4 stations, and at that time, our incident volume was 5,384. 2019, what has happened over that since 1991? So we have increased to 33, and that was because of the opening of Station 109 up in the Pleasant Farms area. So there was a 32% increase in staffing. We added 1 firehouse. Like I said, Station 109 was built during that time period. So there's a 25% increase there in the number of stations. But what has happened significantly is our incident volume has increased during that time. Almost 92%. And so we haven't maintained or kept up with the demand for service. So, what we're asking for, in the future is going to be some increased staffing to be able to support our service delivery. And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Next slide, please. That's like I said, it's pretty much it in a nutshell. Again, that's just an overview of the needs assessment that's been conducted. Much of this information has been discussed individually with the board members, and as we approach the end of our levy cycle, if you will, we're starting to trend down and see available funds start to trend down. So we're taking the necessary steps to identify what's going to be needed to continue to provide our first-class service to this community. Certainly, we want to maintain our ISO Class 1 designation, and any reduction in services, our inabilities to be able to provide our services, there's consequences and implications associated with that. So, any questions, please?
I'll ask Roger or Matt if they have any questions first.
No questions from me. Thanks again, Chief. I know that we talked about this at some length one-on-one. Thanks for the presentation.
Again, let me make no questions, but a comment. I have seen that prospect stations, the living condition is really horrible. This is before the COVID-19 situation. The living quarters with the people going rest, the firefighters, is so bad at the time. How they doing? How they coping now? We have that distance, social distance. These guys work so closely. It is very sad, and the situation. These are the guys go ahead and protect our life. Now they themselves, it's pretty bad situation with their house right now, and that is, we got an obligation to give them a better living condition.
Deplorable. I wouldn't describe the living conditions as deplorable. Certainly, there are some definite major problems with the infrastructure associated with that building, but you can be rest assured that when these matters are brought to our attention, and Bob Della Pasta are being addressed with urgency. But until such a time that we can, uh, replace that station, we're making the best with what we've got. Again, it's very tight living quarters for the firefighters down there. And again, we're doing our best to maintain the place as best as possible so that it is livable, so that we can continue to serve the citizens of Groesbeck.
Thank you, Chief.
Ask one question, Chief. With our 5 stations, do we have each one of them set up as a separate accounting unit, or the costs just overlap from each station? So if we had to pick, you mentioned 2 of them you'd like to consider for replacement. Is there one that's our highest annual operating cost that might affect our outlays if we replace that one? Is there one that would be a better financial decision to replace first, or I realize they both.
Well, obviously, we have the land available to us to construct 102s. I don't have any data with me or.
Okay, that's fine.
But both 102s and 26s are what I would categorize as critical.
Right, and if we build a new station, one at a time or both at once, but probably one at a time with up to the other trustees. And we took one of those other ones offline, that would probably help our operating expenses because we wouldn't have all the maintenance and repairs because we'd be starting out with a new building.
Right,
So,
right.
okay.
And, I think us as leaders, whatever means we choose to fund these projects, we have to be creative and do what's most cost effective for not only us, but for the citizens. And we want to maintain providing high quality services, in a most expeditious amount of time to the areas that we serve. So,
I would comment that when you and I discussed this a few months ago before all this stuff happened, that I did contact my homeowner's insurance agent and talked about an ISO 1 versus another rating and what the saving is annually on my personal homeowner's insurance premium. And it does make a difference to have a higher rated fire department as far as what my annual premium is. So if we would slip out of that first class rating for whatever reason, I would expect my premium to go up. So there is a benefit for the homeowners and business owners to have a higher rated fire department. There is a financial benefit besides the more important emergency services benefit.
The way I look at it, it's more than just a sticker on the side of the truck. There's cost savings realized to the businesses and the citizens, the residential property owners in the township, but it also demonstrates the quality of fire protection that we have here in Colerain. Again, less than 1% of the fire departments in the United States are designated class 1s. And, so we are designated amongst some of the elite, if you will, in the United States as a fire department agency.
And I would ask any business or homeowner to, check with your agent and see what the difference is. I know when I did that for myself, I found there was a difference of maybe $80 a year, which is $80 a year. So
$80.
well, thank you very much.
You're
And
welcome.
if anybody has any questions, you can certainly contact our administrator or Frank with your questions.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
And next item, Mr. Mills.
The next item on the agenda, I wanted, while we don't have any public hearings scheduled for this evening, I wanted to just point out that at the last meeting before the COVID crisis, before the COVID crisis, we had 3 public hearings scheduled. Those obviously can't happen right now. We can't take sworn testimony without folks being here, and so those are postponed until further notice. So there will be no public hearings this evening, and that brings us to citizens address. You'll recall that we're doing citizens address a little differently tonight. Obviously, there's no one here, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. So we sent out through our communications channels a call for anyone who wanted to share something with the trustees to email a specific email account. And by 12 o'clock today, and we received, I believe, 15 emails. So, Trustee Unger,
Right, we did, and Raj, I have these printed out, and I will go ahead and read them if that favors you. Is that all right? I'll go ahead with the first one, and that is a email comment we've received from Christine Freeberg. Your Board of Trustees and Fiscal Officer, I come to you as a taxpaying citizen and concerned resident of Colerain Township, one of the largest townships in the great state of Ohio. Tonight on the agenda is asking to not exceed $500 to construct a community garden. Since when do we give grants to private residents of the township, and are all residents aware of this grant? When do we stop giving away money and resources to one area of our township? Since I have been back the past few years, I have seen thousands of dollars given, whether actual cash, consultant fees, or valuable township resources, for this particular community, and pretty much nothing to show for. And I am reading this verbatim, by the way. For example, crime is still pretty high in that particular area. The shopping plaza had fruit trees planted about 2 years ago, only to be neglected. Properties are still not cared for by either owner or the landlord or tenant according to zoning codes. We have also given one family a parade for their dying son, in parentheses, when there were other kids in the township that suffer from similar cancers with the same result in death, who happen to live in the same community. Can we please stop taking from Peter to pay Paul mentality when this particular community had their hands out? Remember, this is the same community who welcomes low-income housing and all its problems with open arms and hands out, that the board did not approve for one of the properties. I hope you ponder on this. My solution to this, start holding this community accountable. Isn't one of the specialists a resident of this community as well? Where is the code enforcement specialist? Also, there is a member from that community who is also on the zoning board. Where are these individuals? I would love to see my hard-earned money go into something that will benefit the entire Colerain Township community and not just one segment. So please do not, the way this is written, so please do not for approving this grant to the private individuals. Speaking of code enforcement, I see there is a request for additional hours. I also noticed that beat 3 of the western part of Colerain has the highest number of hours at 30. Since I live in that area and I know the land is farther apart, but zoning violations are pretty much few and far between, I would rather split those hours by 10, 5 additional hours to Northbrook and 5 additional to Groesbeck. They are in more of a need for enforcement. I would also like to address as to why the township financials are not updated. Why? We are in the middle of April. I get it that we are also quarantined, but I believe some of the work can be done from home. After all, they are salaried employees of the taxpayers of this township. Contract with Waycross. Please cancel. It's not worth that kind of money. I do not get the channel. There has been issues the past 2 years with sound quality and such. Thank you for all your time and consideration into reading this. It is my hope that all is well with all of you, and I hope to see you in the near future. Sincerely, Christine Freeberg. And that is the first one. And the question about why the township financials aren't updated, that'll come up in the next one, so we can answer it then. The next public comment is from Michelle Morrison. There's 5 items on this. I see the property at 8329 Livingston Road was sold on March 13th, 2020 from Bradfish Properties to Duke Energy for $1,499,000. Passing the property, I have seen the house and storage garage have been demolished and the lot, if being, I think she meant is being leveled. I have searched for any change in zoning or permit requests, but have not found any. Where can I find this, and where can I find a notice to neighbors in the area of the zone change? What are the plans for this property? and I do know the answer to that. Duke Energy is building a gas valve station on that site, which is a utility. It replaces a very small valve that was on the south side of Livingston, or the southeast side of Livingston. So that property, there is some very active utility construction going on there right now. And I'll ask you, Jeff, is there a need for a zone change when a public utility is being constructed?
There is not.
Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. And to anybody watching, there's an active construction site at Blue Rock and Livingston. It is a facility for Duke Energy, which is a utility and supplies gas to our businesses and residents. And then comes the question, why are the township financial records still not updated for 2020? Did you want to make a comment on that, Jeff?
Sure. So in the past year or so, we have undergone pretty significant changes in our finance department. Our finance director moved on. It took quite a while to find a suitable replacement. We finally, very fortunately, hired Jeff McElravy. Right when he came on, the week before, in fact, our payroll specialist moved on also. So for the first several months, Mr. McElravy has been being the finance director and the payroll clerk for all of our employees, a very important job. Then we moved into the time period of end of year financial reporting. And all that is to say that he has been extraordinarily busy. And these monthly financial reports, while a fantastic source of information on how the township is spending money on a month-to-month basis, are not required to be created. We are required to pay our employees. And so we have had to triage things that are required and things that are nice to have as we work to get back the capacity in our finance department.
Thank you, Jeff. The next comment from Michelle Morrison is, I see a tactical urbanism grant for an amount not to exceed $500 to construct a community garden. Where can I find the public post or notice of this and any other grants that are available from Colerain Township? Where is this money coming from? Jeff?
The Board of Trustees created a program called the Tactical Urbanism Mini Grant Program. If you go to our website, colerain.org, put in the search bar there, Tactical Urbanism or Mini Grant, I believe that the program guidelines will pop up. This is for $500 small grants that empower neighborhoods to take on projects that benefit the neighborhood, and it's a way to empower our neighborhood organizations and just individuals in our township to do things to make positive change in our community.
Thank you. What is the update on Colerain Park? I have seen nothing posted on the website as far as an opportunity to publicly view, find updates, and give input. And I would say at our March 10th meeting, our Public Works Director, Jackie O'Connell, did an extensive presentation on what is going on at Colerain Park, specifically Megaland. And after a robust discussion, we invited anybody to contact Jackie with comments, questions, or ideas. Do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay. And then the last item from Michelle Morrison, I see yet another third-party contract with the township. I've been watching the auction or request for quotes bid section of the township website, and I must have missed a notice to bid for this contract. And the township leave prior bid notices up instead of taking them down after a contractor has been selected. I guess we could. I guess we're following our purchasing policies when we post those. And I don't know if we would need to change the policy, or if we could just leave them up for an extra 15 days. But our policy is we post legal notices, and we post on our website when we need a bid or a price on anything. And then after we secure a contract, we've taken those down. So any comments?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Our next comment is from Kerry Davis. And it starts out with a few issues. The Greater Colerain Community Group wrapped up their Easter egg scavenger hunt and spring bloom event, offering opportunities for a picture-perfect Easter activity. Over 122 families participated with an average of 2 children per household. About 250 people in total enjoyed the first Easter egg hunt in Colerain in over a decade. He awarded over 200 prizes for their Easter and spring picks thanks to the Supreme Nut and Candy Company, the Box Place, Next Level Fitness, and Lake Nina. Here are a few picks from the pandemic-aware activity, and I didn't get the pictures with it. So as far as the agenda, number one, as to the sidewalk, thank you for addressing this need in the community for Northwest high walkers. Very much needed. Will the Lake Gloria developer receive a TIF or other tax-supported benefit for their portion of the sidewalk, or any other financed public benefit from their project? Number two, Greater Northbrook's new garden, an absolutely great idea. They're lucky to have people willing to put the $500 to good use. However, last year, the majority of the raised garden beds at Work Park laid empty. Greater Colerain Community Group offered to plant flowers and vegetables on their dime, fully donated, in order for the beds to look appealing instead of dormant. We were not permitted to do the same thing Greater Northbrook is doing, and at no cost. I don't understand why we were not permitted to do so. And moreover, I don't see how it's fair to the taxpayers to pay for a garden bed in Northbrook, but are charged money plus their materials donated to complete a project already in existence and underutilized. Could you please explain the disparity in fair treatment? And can DCCG fill the unused beds this year without being charged? And I'm gonna take a quick drink. With the zoning error being corrected at this meeting and the passing of a resolution to correct an error at the last meeting or meeting before, due to another error exposed by Joseph's attorney, when will all the residents who were illegally charged a fee not specified on the fee schedule receive their refunds? And what will we do to correct the denial of due process rights to all those residents who were told they had to pay the $350 plus filing fee to challenge a code violation and could not afford the fee? Can residents who are poor get a fee waiver in order to access the BZA? Or will trustees be sending a written response on the Greater Colerain Community Group page relevant to their stances on the Save Lake Gloria campaign? What are the reasons for denying this opportunity provided in the PR zoning change? 5, I think Waycross does an exceptional job, and I look forward to seeing their work under the new contract. However, I believe it shows a real flaw in our hiring practices when there is only one applicant for a contract. This is a sign we are not advertising positions and contracts properly. 6, why wasn't the public hearings portion provided appropriate legal notice? 7, there are a total of 40 different issues within this agenda. If we only discuss for it's spelled incorrectly, but for a lousy 5 minutes each, then we have a meeting that's 3.5 hours long. Please start having meetings on a weekly basis. This isn't fair to our elderly population to expect them to sit there that long. And it isn't fair for the trustees to be rushed through issues. 8, please fix the website's bars at the bottom and link the documents for each line item, as Bruce suggested over a year ago. 9, playground update. I submitted comments as directed. However, that was never acknowledged, so I sent on to the design firm and was disturbed to know that after waiting weeks, my suggestions were never given to them at all. What's the point in asking for public input, then discarding it? 10, last year, I requested we do a spring fling cleanup of the Colerain Strip. Will we be cleaning up the area this year? Any improvements on the appearance of the strip plan for this year? Question mark. Thanks, Carrie Davis. Any comments, Jeff? Not at this time. Next comment comes from Stephanie Wright. What is the status on the summer camp program for the township? Sent from Stephanie Wright. And I think the answer is we need to find out what the governor's going to do with our COVID, and we need to watch our budget as you described earlier. I really hope we can have the program, but at this point on April 14th, we're not hiring, and we're just going to have to wait and see what we're allowed to do. The next comment comes from Stephanie Wright. When could the community expect to see financial reports for the year 2020? We have seen videos provided by the township that all financials are in order. Why are they not available for residents to view? And I think you answered that earlier with the changes we've had with Jeff McElravy becoming on board and a new payroll person. And, one thing you didn't mention is we just changed fiscal officers also. So we hope to get those up as soon as possible. We have a lot of things going on, and we hope to get them up as soon as possible. The next question comes from Stephanie Wright. What is the status for food trucks within the township? This was on the agenda for last month's meeting. The food trucks need a permit to operate in the township, and I think that was part of our zoning.
One of the text amendments that was proposed was a proposed regulation of food trucks. At this time, food trucks are regulated by the police department as transient vendors. So if there is a need to investigate a food truck for permitting issues, the number to call is 321 COPS. If, assuming that there isn't a more pressing emergency, our police officers will go and investigate whether or not a transient vendor permit has been issued for that food truck.
Thank you, Jeff. And the next question comes from Stephanie Wright. How many commercial vacant property registrations are on file with the zoning department? And the second part of the question is why is the township so lax in enforcing the zoning codes for businesses? And I think that we differentiate between commercial and residential zoning violations. We don't categorize them differently.
Nope, everyone, residential and commercial are treated the same. And I believe on our data transparency portal, if you go to Colerain.org, click on transparency, then click on data transparency, I believe that there is a vacant building registries. Yep, there is. I'm looking at it right now. Vacant building registries update. And so you can see the number of vacant buildings reported, the number of bank foreclosures, the number of vacant foreclosed property registries, and vacant building maintenance licenses in pretty much real time. It's updated every month. So to answer your question, how many are there? We publish it right on our website.
And the second part of it is why is the township so lax in enforcing the zoning codes for businesses? And, I think we talked about this a little earlier. 40 to 50% of small businesses are closed right now, and housing court is closed also. And I would say that in the last 2.5 to 3 years, we have sent more cases to housing court. We have done more enforcement than any period of time leading up to the last 2.5 years. It's been a priority of mine. I know it's Raj's priority. It was a Greg Ensko priority, and I'm sure Matt's on it also. If Matt or Raj has any comments, but we are on it, and it's just right now housing court is closed. So the next question comes from Stephanie Wright. What is the status of the false alarm contract?
Chief Cook or Chief Denny? Do you have that?
That contract is signed and enforced. They're working with the vendor right now to switch over to our new records management system that starts next week.
Thank you, Chief. The next comment comes from Linda Goggle. We have been reassured that the township is in good financial shape. We receive grants from the county, state, and federal. How will these grants be affected because of budget cuts on these levels? Current grants, such as the grants for the playground or sidewalks block grants, will they be delayed or canceled? Do we know what can happen, or is this an unknown at this time? And when you began your presentation on the effects of the COVID shutdown, I did mention this question was coming up. So the answer, Linda, is we are doing our best to keep these programs funded. But the fact of the matter is, as Jeff described earlier, there's a lot of unknowns from the state and the federal right now. We do know that at our very local township level, we're fortunate that our budget's pretty stable for now. I expect we're going to have some property tax collections. I don't think we're going to get 100% property tax collection in June and January of next year because, frankly, people are really in a struggle right now. But yes, so Jeff did address this a little earlier. Another question from Linda. I sent in a previous email, but I have a few more comments. We are being asked to support our local businesses, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Why are we not enforcing our zoning codes regarding mobile food trucks coming into the township? And I think you just answered that as it's a police issue, and Call 321 cops. Was that the answer?
That's right. And we're looking at ways that our zoning resolution can be used to regulate food trucks. I think food trucks are my personal opinion is food trucks are a benefit to the community. We take direction from the board, and if you guys think otherwise, we can regulate them out of existence. But our operating assumption is that these are positives for our community, add to vibrancy, give people lots of options. So we are coming up with ways that we can have them, but that they don't detract from neighborhoods.
Item 2, I was wondering if the trustees would consider waiving the rental fees for the garden spots at Work Park. If the township is giving many grants to have a community garden, it seems only fair to waive the rental fees at Work Park. Anyone can apply for a mini grant.
Yes.
And a mini grant up to $500. Yes, that's a lot of money. I'm very conscious of that. But if somebody can improve a piece of property for that low amount, plus a lot of volunteer time and probably just as much volunteer funding, I think that saves us a lot of money, as opposed to sending one of our crews out for a day or two and having all that labor expense and material expense. If there's a group of good community volunteers that go through the application process, they can get an awful lot of improvement done for under $500, as opposed to having the township government come in and do it, because our cost is going to be greater. So would we consider waiving the rental fees? That's a question for the trustees. Her third comment is, with the grant for the sidewalk on Pippin Road, which side of the street is this being submitted for? Does this have anything to do with the new development? And I think Raj could probably answer that. If the grant is for the west side of the street, it does not have anything to do with the new development. But Raj, did you have a comment on
This, then, first of all, I want to tell Linda that this grant is already appropriated in 2019. And this is a very critical sidewalk for the kids to walk from Northwest High School to the Stribble Road. I assume the walk will be in the west side of, on the Pippin Road towards southbound. Okay, that seems to be pretty much continuation of the sidewalks on the road, Pippin Road. Okay?
Thank you, Raj. And one more question from Linda Goggle. Reviewing the agenda packet, I noticed there was a parcel added into the TIF for the Kroger on Springdale Road by error. How is having the parcel included in the TIF and being removed by resolution, how it impacted taxes is how is this written? How will it impact taxes, perhaps? Did the township receive less taxes because it was incorrectly added to the Kroger TIF, or was it to our benefit? What else needs to be done following the passage of this resolution? And I think that when that was added, I think that was Kroger's who added that by mistake. It was not us.
That is my understanding.
And that's why I think we have something coming up in the agenda to pull that off of there.
That's right.
So when that agenda item comes up, we'll address any other comments on that. And then I have a comment from Amanda Lundy. Hi, I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now. However, I do feel the speeding on Memory Lane is an urgent matter. I understand we are a pass-through street, but that doesn't make our kids' lives any less important. We have cars going up to 60 miles an hour. It's getting to the point that sometimes it's dangerous to exit the driver's side of your vehicle. If the township ran radar, they would make thousands of dollars a month. The police presence on our street is very minimal. Someone is going to die if this issue isn't addressed. A few suggestions from the residents on Memory Lane. Run radar for a few days. If these people are ticketed or warned, maybe they will stop. Maybe speed bumps, signage, or blinking lights showing the speed limit. Thank you, Amanda Lundy. And Chief Denny, you may be aware of this. Plans for.
Yeah, I spoke to our traffic officer this afternoon. He's going to have the traffic sign installed in that area, and we're also going to increase patrols on Memory Lane.
Thank you, Chief. And then I have a comment from individual Eric Reifenberger. Due to some people that don't care about those around them or the safety of others, I propose the following motion. It will be a minor offense with perhaps an attached fine for purposely having placed yard waste, such as mowed grass, either by machine or manually, into a roadway. Clumps of grass can make a car slide, wipe out a motorist or bicyclist, and clog storm drains, which leads to flooding of homes or streets. Some communities already have motions like this in place. I believe it is time for Colerain to enforce one as well. Thank you for your time, Eric Reifenberger. And I actually believe putting waste in the street may be covered in the Ohio Revised Code.
Yes, I believe so.
And if you see that, well, number one, if you're a homeowner, please, after you're done cutting your grass, some of it might get in the street or on the sidewalk, please sweep it up and put it all back in your yard, in the grass, and get it out of the street. If you see anybody blowing leaves in the wintertime or, in the fall when they're cleaning your yard or putting grass in the storm drains, that does a lot more damage than just flooding. It destroys the pipes when they're always wet and water's in there, causing deterioration of the mortar joints. So please call the township or call the non-emergency number 321 COPS and let us know. So thank you for your comment, Eric. And then I have a comment from former trustee Greg Ensko. Hey, it's Greg Ensko. Just wanted to thank you for your service to our community. I'm here if you need anything. Thanks, Greg. Next comment is from Debbie Craven. Hi, I noticed this week that sidewalks are being marked again, which was done last year and nothing was done. My question is it true the township plans on fixing sidewalks and then charging residents and adding the cost to their tax bill? I had a couple of conversations with Mr. Mills about the concerns of residents, like my dad, who can't afford to fix his sidewalk or driveway apron, let alone pay fines. He told me he was working on things to help. I don't know if that meant a grant or something like that, but if my dad can't afford that, how is he going to afford to add this onto his taxes? He is 80 years old. So could he or someone else clarify this matter for us? Thank you, Debbie Craven. And I think you'll address that when that comes up on the agenda tonight?
That is actually not going to be on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
It was scheduled for a public hearing, but since we
Right.
can't take testimony, it's been pushed out.
Right, but the answer to that is we are getting a community development block grant to pay for these sidewalks. And then here in the township, you're responsible for the sidewalk that's on your property. And if you don't have the money to fix it, and you have an opportunity to fix it before we would send somebody in to fix it, but you need to fix your sidewalks, it's your responsibility to maintain that sidewalk. For those that don't fix it and they want the township to go ahead and fix it, I believe we will stretch that out over a number of years incrementally on your property tax bill so that you don't get hit with that big expense at once. But driveway aprons and sidewalks are the responsibility of the homeowner.
Yes.
And other townships that have a dedicated road levy, such as Anderson, they have big annual sidewalk programs. And if the fellow trustees want to go that route, that's something we could discuss. But right now, people are maintaining their own sidewalk and driveway apron. The next comments are from Kathy Moore. And she comments, I would appreciate my comments be shared and the answers to my questions come from the elected officials. Thank you, Kathy. Comments on policy changes, Kathy Moore, April 14th, 2020. I think Jeff Weckbach has done a terrific job at compiling the information for paid time off. You will notice that a majority of communities, I'm reading this verbatim, you will notice that a majority of communities does not offer vacation until after a year of service. Some offer accrual on date of hire, but do not get 2 weeks vacation while accruing for the next year. The township policy allows a new hire 2 weeks while at the same time accruing for the next year. This is how an employee received 14 days unused vacation after only 8 months working. She quit with a nice payout while still having taken vacation time. Your job as an elected official is to spend wisely. We've heard the excuses that new hires are used to having vacations or may already have vacation planned. Well, they can still take vacation, they just won't get paid for it. There is nothing wrong with that. If they are willing to change jobs or re-enter the workforce, I would hope they are mature enough to understand that the policy is the policy. Jim Rowan changed this in 2012 or 2013. Employees have good wages and benefits. If it's not good enough, they should find some place that offers them everything they want. But Colerain Township has to watch out for our money. Again, this is your responsibility. Questions for the trustees and fiscal officer concerning administration, planning, zoning, and finance. What employees are essential? Are they in the office for regular hours? Are they performing regular daily activities? The employees we have are essential. At this time during the COVID shutdown, we've had as many people as we can working from home in order to abide by the governor's orders that we not have groups of 10 and in order for the safety of the employees. Everybody's online and there is quite a bit of work getting done from home. What employees are non-essential? What is their working status? We did have 2 part-time fire employees that were at Northgate Mall doing blood pressure checks and other work. We consider that that's an important part of our community health, but I believe those 2 fire department employees are not given any hours right now. Is that correct, Frank? We consider all of our police and fire and zoning and public works employees essential. Our parks are getting more use now than ever, and we have a very small crew that's maintaining them. A lot of people talk about the way this board of trustees and the last board runs this township, but we finished 2019 with a nice positive cash balance, and we're going to do our best to continue to maintain everything. So if employees are working from home, what are they doing from home? They're doing everything they can without coming in the office. I know I was in here earlier today and Jeff Weckbach came in because he needed some stuff from his office. But Colerain Township, like so many other employers, they're trying to ration out the times that different employees can be in the office so that we can maintain our distance from each other and to hopefully get back to normal operations as soon as possible. What daily routine jobs are being disregarded? Besides the 2 part-time fire employees that were at the mall, I think we're doing our best to try to do everything we can. Next question, who is now or will continue to be responsible for freedom of information requests? I would guess that would be our new fiscal officer, Jeff Baker, and then the next question is, who will fulfill all the freedom of information requests that Heather did not respond to over the last 6 to 8 months? And you've asked for an answer. There have been, I guess, 1,100 requests since April of 2018, which is about 1,070 more requests than our neighboring township, Green Township. So we get hammered with information requests. So there's been about 1,100 since April of 2018. As of today, there are 178 out of that 1,100 or so that Heather did not finish. 22 of those have come actually starting 2 minutes after midnight on April 1st. 2 minutes after Jeff Baker's term started, that's when more started coming in. So that was a nice middle of the night wake up for you, Fiscal Officer Baker. But Jeff Baker will ultimately be responsible for those. I think when we get back to our normal meetings, we might discuss, we will get those cleared up. And if they're coming in at the rate of 3 a day, 2 a day at this point, you know, we're working on it, and we try to answer everybody's public information request. If you're somebody that's never made a request, please request. We're trying to get them all answered. We just, for whatever reason, we get an awful lot more than anybody else, and primarily most of them come from just a couple people. It's becoming more and more apparent that our elected officials don't care, but are you aware that you're in violation of the Public Records Act? It is your responsibility to make sure that freedom of information request records are provided within a reasonable amount of time. What are you doing to satisfy the currently filed freedom of information requests? What about financial reports? It is obvious they are being deliberately withheld. Not one report released for 2020. That is a dereliction of duty. Again, it is your responsibility to make sure the law is followed. So those are the comments from Kathy Moore. And we appreciate your comments and, you know, Heather left with 100 and, it's not 178, she left with 156, I guess. And 22 of those have come in here during the COVID shutdown for you, Fiscal Officer Baker. So we just got to keep plugging along and try to keep them going. There's one more. Every one of these that I've answered came from a person who signed their name to it. There's one here from a group and there's no name attached to it. I'm pretty sure I know who it came from, but all it is, it says, we appreciate your time and consideration, respectfully save Lake Gloria. So I'd have to go to Larry and say, do I need to read one that is not, and I'm happy to, but should I read ones that are not signed by a person?
That is totally up to you. You have the discretion to read it if you would like, or not to read it.
Well, then I will go ahead and read it. But I would like to point out that whoever sent this, and I can't assume where it came from, but they did not sign it. It says from Greater Colerain Community Group. To be read and asked of trustees, save Lake Gloria. There is huge opposition to the Lake Gloria development, though I personally like it. The biggest factor is the idea that the lake will be closed to the public forever after. Hence, we have collected over 500 signatures asking the township to accept the area as designated common open space as a public park, just like we did with Stone Creek. This seems to be a fair trade-off that will allow the project to go forward with community support. We can have both this development and a new public park, a win-win for the community and developer. The residents support the following concept. Ask the developer to move the 8-unit structure from the current parking lot to where the public gazebo is located in their plans. Create a common open space area south of the east to west running creek to serve as the park, including both the clubhouse and parking lot. Designate those approximate 7 acres as a community park with a possible pay lake. I'm gonna go ahead and ask a question. Isn't this privately owned land?
Yes, sir.
So we could do none of this.
Right, because we do not own that property.
Right, okay. Yeah, the township does not own the Lake Gloria property. It is privately owned. If anyone wants to contact the owner of the property and write him a check for it, I'm sure they would entertain any offers. I just wanted to point out that we don't own that.
We do not.
Okay. Arguments 4. Preserve community tradition of 3+ generations teaching kids to fish at that lake. Possible revenue generator from Pay Lake, as well as fishing tournaments, scout outings, group meeting room for area nonprofits, etc. 3, have an actual park building that is in excellent structural condition for public bathrooms, concessions, bait sales, community activities. 4, retain environmental conditions in perpetuity. 5, we are giving them a TIF for the sidewalk worth tens of thousands, maybe over 100,000. The community residents should get something in return for a change. 6, this plan would clearly be the best use of the land as mandated by law and zoning code. 7, this plan optimizes the intent of common open space instead of placating. 8, this project would have a public benefit clearly identified for tax increment financing qualifications. 9, retains the intent to create a sidewalk from Struble to Stout, making it a win-win-win. 10, this fair compromise in order to grant a zoning change and exceed the number of units permitted on the property in violation of the zoning code would present a great marketing tool for the targeted audience. Property adjacent to a township park and the integrity and history of the area will be preserved as a neighborhood amenity. Arguments against it with rebuttals. Cost too much money. No, it is free, and it's an option under the law we should exercise. A developer is not supposed to be paid for the common open space as required by law for a PDR. Maintenance would be high. Incorrect. Because the lake has operated for 7 decades with the existing trails and fishing spots, there is minimal need for grass cutting and maintenance. The gravel parking lot is low maintenance. The developer apartment complex operator would retain responsibility for upkeep of all facets of the lake itself. 3, liability for possible accidents. The Ohio Revised Code provides a waiver of liability for any water courses, bodies open to the public. No additional insurance costs due to water feature. 4, and I'm reading this verbatim, additional insurance for more parklands. Cost would be less than $100 a month for the coverage added, likely less than $100 per year. 5, operational cost. Stocking the lake, if we choose to do so, would cost about $2,500 a year. Operator cost for on-site pay lake attendant would be covered entirely by revenues generated. In the event it does not, it could be a free fishing lake like Triple Creek. Township budget constraints. Per the Finance Director's public service announcement, our budget is not affected by the pandemic nor a recession. I don't think that's what he said.
That's not what he said.
Yeah, if you go back and watch that announcement that was on Circle, he said we can expect changes. Right now, we're okay. Frankly, there is no justifiable reason not to make this a public park. It would be a tremendous asset due to its unique natural features and the clubhouse. The possibilities are endless. The opportunity is one of a kind. We need to act now on behalf of the residents. Here is a link to the Save Lake Gloria Facebook page so you can follow the residents' support. Join the group if you support the residents on this matter. And I guess you go to facebook.com/groups/Save Lake Gloria /. Here is a link to the petition being circulated with nearly 600 signatures in less than 10 days and growing. Please let us know whether or not you support this proposal. If you oppose this proposal, please respond in writing to the residents of Save Lake Gloria via this email, or please feel free to post on their Facebook page. Please be specific as to why you feel making Lake Gloria a public park is not in the best interest of the residents and will not improve the quality of life characteristics of Colerain. We appreciate your time and consideration. Respectfully, Save Lake Gloria. An action plan supported by the Greater Colerain Community Group. It does give a phone number, 306-3057, and then it says see attachment. So I guess if you go to that Facebook page, you'll be able to read all about this. Facebook.com/groups/Save Lake Gloria /. And that, I believe, is all of the, that would conclude the citizens address. I think it's gone pretty well just to read through it. And I can't wait till we get back to a meeting because I love the interaction with our residents. Any comments, Raj or Matt? Or should we move on?
No, I just move on.
Next item is administrative reports. Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Unger, Board of Trustees. In preparation for this first in history meeting, I did some reading on best practices, and one of the best practices for one of these meetings is to be brief. Seeing as we are now moving into our third hour, I will keep my comments very brief. But I do want to say that the past month has been an extraordinary challenge for all of us. The businesses in our community are facing sort of existential threats. Small businesses, retail, restaurants are seeing things that could not be planned for and have not been. I would like to see as many of these retail and restaurant establishments pull through this as possible. So I just wanted to encourage folks, if you get the opportunity to get some takeout every now and then, do that. There's a number of great restaurants in Colerain. Just like any business, Colerain Township has had to significantly change the way it does business in a very short period of time. I cannot overemphasize how incredible our staff has been through this very, very challenging period of change. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate, our first responders who are out there right now. These are guys and men and women who are riding in the back of ambulances with suspected COVID cases, putting their health on the line for their patients' health and for all of our health. And the amount of bravery that takes is not lost on me. And I appreciate that so very much. We have a meeting every morning to try to make sure that through the planning phase, to try to make sure that, or the preparedness phase, to try to make sure that our operational posture was such that we could provide the best response for a threat that we still don't know the magnitude of. We are through the preparedness phase and we're in the response phase now. That response phase, I don't know how long it's going to last. Nobody does. But I can tell you that I don't know if there's many people looking forward to the recovery phase more than me. I just cannot wait to get on the other side of this thing healthy, with all of our residents healthy, our employees healthy. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of our police and fire, our public services folks who are here today, trying to make our community gets through this intact. So that's what I'm going to leave my administrative report with. I've asked our each department head to, in lieu of giving the typical administrative report with numbers, to give just a very, very brief snapshot of their operational posture. That means how they are accomplishing the work that needs to be done. Are all of those numbers that we typically report out on at this phase of the meeting, those will be published tomorrow or the next day. That'll be published on Circle. So you'll still be able to get that. But because Chief Frank Cook is in the room, I'm going to start with Chief Frank Cook and give us an update on operational posture of the fire department.
So the Department of Fire and EMS, for the most part, it's business as usual, except for the one element or the one segment of service at Northgate Mall. We continue to provide our services to the community just like any other day. Now, to address the risk exposures and the limitations as set forth, administratively, we are working staggered shifts, but the business office or the administrative offices are open and staffed fully. Actually, we're up to probably a little bit more time than we normally would be because of the staggered shifts. Is actually, we're there 9 hours instead of 8 hours. But administratively, myself, my assistant chiefs, and the divisional managers, we are conducting at home. We're coming in for 3 to 4 hours a day to conduct our business within the office. Operationally, again, it's business as usual. We are responding to all emergencies as requested. It's just that our approach is a little different. We're taking more time to inquire or engage in dialogue with the victims and the families to ensure that we're approaching this appropriately, that we're dressed out in the proper PPE and taking the necessary precautionary measures to not only protect the victims, but to protect ourselves as well. After these exposures, and the one division I failed to mention that is our fleet maintenance. Those guys, they're continuing to work an 8-hour day in making sure that our vehicles are operational. So, my directive towards them is that while there's enough space in the facility for those guys to work apart, they have to work in close proximity with one another for any repair tasks that they are to wear masks to protect themselves. But for the most part, it's business as usual. We respond to every request that we possibly can. Even though the fire stations are closed to the public, we still are out there conducting business as usual.
Thank you, Frank.
One other item I just wanted to mention, typically during anniversaries, I recognize employees for their tenure with the department. And because of the situation that we're in right now, I just want to briefly recognize Captain Christopher Hopkins and Jim Bowman for achieving 25 years of service, 25th of last month. And, both of them has been instrumental in providing the services, not only to the department, but to the community as well. And I thank them for their loyalty and dedication.
Congratulations to them. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Chief, and congrats.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
All right, so our projector went dark in this room, but Trustee Rajagopal and Trustee Waller, you guys heard all that and were able to see all that?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Okay, the next, Chief Denny.
Thanks, Jeff. In late February and beginning early March, the police department began taking steps to protect both of our officers and the public from the virus. We began to promote the use of our online reporting, and to date, we've taken about 170 online reports since March 1st. That represents about 165% increase in the use of that system. We also began handling a lot of our reports over the phone, and again, the goal is to limit exposure to the officers who may contract and then transmit the virus while they're on duty to our citizens. We made some creative and strategic changes to our scheduling, and that allows us to ensure that we'll have constant coverage even if the members of the department get sick. We have enough officers that'll be able to cover shifts. There's absolutely no reduction in manpower. There's command staff and civilian staff here every day, and we'll continue to handle the needs of the community.
Hey, Chief, thank you so much for doing this great job during this time, and officers exposed to themselves such a bad timing, but still protecting our community. And I really appreciate your great work for the officers.
Thank you.
Chief?
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Chief, do I still have you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, too. I had two quick questions that have come up from residents. So the business, there's concern from people that since the businesses are closed, it presents a bigger target of opportunity. Maybe you could address that for a second.
Yeah, we've talked to the patrol sergeants and the patrol squads. We've asked them to increase their business checks and actually sit in the parking lots, do paperwork to be visible. In their beats, they get out of the cars and actually pull in the doors of the businesses at night. So we do have them doing increased business patrols as well.
Okay, awesome. And another question I've gotten, and you've probably gotten probably 10 times as many questions about it as I have, are the people that really aren't practicing the social distancing outside and are still in groups. And this is a very difficult thing to enforce. Perhaps you could address that very quickly.
Yeah, we've had several complaints about that, and where we can send officers out to educate, we've done that. We've generally had very good interaction with the residents. We've had a couple of complaints about businesses that were in violation. We contacted the Board of Health, and they quickly took care of that within the hour and actually eradicated that problem for us. So we've got good communication, I think, is the best way to go with this, and we're not looking to be punitive. We want to make sure everybody's compliant and staying healthy.
Okay, and the last thing, I guess very quickly, just thank you to all your hard work, your officers' hard work, and putting yourself on the line and just every day with this thing. This is just a nasty, nasty virus. But the other thing, it's a shame that a lot more people couldn't attend. But it gives me goosebumps now thinking of it. I'm so proud of the way your officers reacted with Officer Kaya Grant, and I know that it's a thin blue line, and I certainly just like to tell all police, all Colerain police, that I'm so sorry for your loss there. It's a needless, tragic loss, but I was so proud the way that your department reacted and filled in, and just how they contacted the family, the Grant family, and things like that. It's just is incredible, and I think it means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. We received a lot of that same support when Dale passed, and we considered it an honor to be able to pay that back. So we'll be here for the next department as well. But thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chief. The next department head to give an administrative report will be Ms. O'Connell, Jackie, in our Public Services Department.
Good evening, gentlemen. Public Services, we have changed the way we're operated a little bit. We've been prioritizing safety and health predominantly when we prioritize tasks. We've been separating our group out as well, so no more two men per truck. And we've been working on projects that require singular staff or projects that when the guys don't have to be in close proximity to each other. We have seen an uptick in the use of parks, which we love, people getting outdoors, but we need to remind a lot of people that there are a couple rules to maintain when you go to the parks. Don't use the equipment. Don't touch the playground equipment. Don't use the benches, the bleachers, the shelter houses. Make sure you're continuing to physically distance. So go wide on the trails, stay away from other groups of people, and make sure you're picking up your litter, your PPE, and picking up after your dog. That we've noticed a lot more trash in the parks, and it would really help us if people could pick up after themselves and not leave things behind. So that's what I've got.
Hey, Jackie, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I just want to convey the best wishes to all our personnel. They're working very hard. I see them every day. I go to Heritage Park for a walk. Amazing how they keep their park so beautiful, clean, and there's a lot of people really enjoying it. They're working very hard. I even see in the roadside our personnel working very, very hard. Please convey my thanks to them, and also protecting our community, keeping beautiful.
I will. Thank you very much for that. They have been working very hard. This is a much different time for them. So thank you.
Jackie, I'd like to just add to that. The same thing I told fire and police. It just, I told Mr. Mills, the entire township has just been incredible in the reaction. It's, we do a lot of professional development in all of our departments in Colerain Township. And it's the one thing I noticed when I first spoke to a lot of the department heads, and boy, it shows, because I think it's been an incredible response, and you and your department have been a big part of that too. So thank you so much for all that you and your department are doing to keep us safe and keep us moving and keep us in the parks. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. I'll make sure to pass along the appreciation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. All right, the next department head to give an administrative report would be Mr. Mike Iona in planning. Mike?
Thank you and good evening. The Department of Planning and Zoning is continuing to operate business as usual. In fact, in many instances, we've been busier than usual. Prior to the current situation with COVID-19, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Prior to our current situation with COVID-19, staff has always had the infrastructure to accommodate digital operations, completely digital operations. And it's great to see that all of it's working so well. We have online permitting. You can enter in code violations and check on the status of those violations via CSR through the web. And we have various methods of interacting with customers, whether it's for a long conversation or a short conversation. I'll give you a brief rundown of the 3 service lines we provide and what we've been doing. The Zoning and Development Review service line. So this is anything from a residential fence permit, an attached garage, detached garage, fence, all the way up to, a new restaurant, gas station, or a large commercial development. It all goes through this service line, the Zoning and Development Review service line. And applying for a permit is really just as easy as stopping by the planning department webpage. It's right here on my phone. You can do it on your phone or your home computer, and you can fill out an online application and submit all the documents you need via online, complete with payment processing. We're always busy this time of year with these permits that they pick up, but in fact, we're busier than normal. In fact, just yesterday, we turned out 14 new permits, which is just incredible for a township of our size. We continue to field commercial calls for development, and we're excited to see the new development opportunities that come when we get on the other side of the COVID-19 epidemic. I'd like to thank Jesse Urbanism for working so hard throughout all of this. He's been a real asset getting us through these digital operations. I want to also point one last thing out with that service line, and that is we've just added something we get a high volume of public records requests for different projects that go to our boards, the Zoning Commission or the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is something I've done in other communities, and to provide the best transparency possible to our residents and to people who get a letter about a development, we've decided to add a now pending page to our planning website. So it's the same site you go to fill out a permit. You can see it here. So we've added a now pending site on our webpage where you can go and check out the complete digital file of the application. What that means is that everything that we have in our paper file at the office, we have contained online, and we have it up to date, basically in real time. So as soon as those documents come in from the applicant, we post those on there. As soon as a new staff document is created in the process of reviewing that application, we post it on the website. So it's just another way that we want to stay transparent and keep people up to date with information. And again, you can access that from your phone or your home computer. Our code enforcement team service line, it continues to be staffed by our hardworking crew of professionals. You know, with only 1.5 individuals working in code enforcement plus myself, you know, we really do what approximately 14 individuals do at other larger jurisdictions in our region. It's very impressive. This is the time of year that these service requests start to really pick up. And our team is prepared for the volume of requests that lie ahead. In fact, we've got some great ideas that we plan on rolling out this year. And one of them includes a much more proactive look at enforcement, not only in the residential communities and the core of those communities, but along the Colerain corridor, which is the core of the township. Last but not least is our planning service line. So this is our long-range planning service line. And, you know, staff has been diligent about working on the goals outlined in our strategic plan. That plan kind of sets the course for us for the year. And in many instances, through this hard work and dedication, for the first time in a long time, we're actually ahead of the timeline for getting these things done, despite us being busy in the other service lines that we provide. The most important project of the year, Imagine Colerain. It's the comprehensive plan update, and it is moving forward on schedule. You know, we have had to move things around due to the COVID-19 epidemic, but we are confident that we'll be able to meet this goal of being ready for adoption at the end of the year. In fact, over the next week, we're going to be exciting. We will be announcing the official go live for the project website. It's imaginecolerain.com. This website's going to be the hub of activity for the plan, and it provides a variety of ways to interact and provide input on the plan and throughout the planning process. One of the things I'm excited about is, and we've discussed this before, it's the digital input map that we worked with Cages to create. And this is really cutting edge. Basically, you can do the same thing that you do at a public input meeting, you know, a traditional public input meeting where you attend and you look at maps, and then you provide your feedback. You can do the same thing from the convenience of your phone or your home computer. So we're really excited to release that out. The project site itself is super robust, and it's got a level of access and input that I have not seen on any project site for a comprehensive plan in this region. It's very exciting. It's very top notch. And again, we're excited to roll that out this week. As always, we welcome the opportunity to discuss the plan and any questions or concerns that you, a resident or a business owner, may have. Please email or call us, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. During this time, I always invite anybody to check out our the planning department webpage. It is jam-packed with useful links, and it has you know, links to information about all the different things we do. That's all for my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions for me, but again, same thing I'm telling everybody. Just thank you so much. Those odd times that we live in, you guys are kicking butt, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Mike, I like the idea of you modernizing all this zoning department. That's a very good, and you doing great transparency, and people can look what is the status of their application. You know, it minimizes a lot of calls they can make. They can look at it, and also, you know that because of the COVID-19, people aren't doing any work for a while, but it's going to be all these violations will be, and you're saying you are ready to prepare. You're getting ready to prepare to address a situation like that, and it's great work. It's great work, and keep that everything is posted. People will know. It's a great transparency work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We've got a great team.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Iona. There was one last person that I needed to recognize before closing out administrative reports, and that is our IT director, Mr. Rob Shepard. In a matter of days, Mr. Shepard was able to support tens of employees transitioning from operations in this building to operations at home. That is no simple task. We was able to set up software that allows us to meet from afar and to do that in a secure way. So Rob Shepard, thank you very much for your efforts also. They have gone unnoticed and we appreciate it. That concludes all of our administrative reports.
Thank you, Jeff. And our next item is trustee reports. We can go live to the Raj's house. Do you have any trustee report tonight, Raj?
You want me to go first? Yeah. Hey, Dan, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. You're coming in great.
Okay. This is a very difficult time, COVID-19. I want to make our township, our residents be safe. That every day I'll call our fire chief, Frank Cook, make sure that they're responding any calls, they're coming through to help our residents. They're doing just that. And they're working tirelessly. And also I called the police department chief, Mark Denny, ask them how the office is doing, their safety, and how they're responding to the calls, how they're responding to protect our community. Every day, make the calls, make sure during this situation, this time of the horrible, then our residents are safe. Then I really was very disturbed a few days ago, the Walmart and Kroger having large amount of people inside the store. I called the Walmart manager and told him, you must practice the governor's order. I'm going to send the health department people to check your store. Sure enough, health department officials went there. The next day I saw that Walmart was practicing how many people can go in the store. Same thing happened Kroger. They're not following the governor's orders. I talked to the manager. You know what? The large amount of people going to the Kroger, and it's our township. We need to protect our residents spreading the coronavirus. And the next day, the manager put 2 people at the front door, limiting the people who can go. What I'm saying is, it's also our responsibility, keep the distance, that way protecting our community, the spreading of the virus, and also protecting our own first responders, not to make many hospital runs. So they'll be very vulnerable to this virus. Also, I emphasize about helping our senior citizens. Here, make sure they get ample of food. They cannot go outside. They're afraid to go out. Make sure they get. So we contacted Nora Daisley from YMCA. She's doing a phenomenal job supplying food for the senior citizens. This is a hotline you can call, and I want to give this number to you, 513-362-2045. That's 513-362-2045. Any senior citizens watching this meeting and need help, please call this number. We have a senior centers volunteers working to answer everyone's calls, any kind of help you need. These are the number you should call, 513-923-5050. The number is 513-923-5050. Please call the number if you need help. Our responsibility, protect our seniors. And I thank again everyone being a part of this fighting this coronavirus, and especially to minimize casualty in Colerain Township. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Matt, did you have a trustee report?
Yes.
Sure, I'll try to keep it brief. For the next meeting, the rules have been updated as per the work session. They're up to be voted on. I'd like to thank, I think it was awesome, the Teddy Kramer, Teddy baseball video. Sorry, Dan, it kind of overshadowed you because it came out the day after yours, so it didn't get as many hits on social media. But the last time I looked, I retweeted it, hit 25,000 impressions, and that's just really cool. And I know that we have another kind of VIP. Has that been released yet, Mr. Mills?
Oh, sorry. No, Mr. Wallet, not yet. Dana and the team at Waycross are still working on it.
Okay, and so look forward for that. No offense to my colleagues here, but I think that people will listen to this individual and to Teddy Kramer more than they listen to us. I was in contact with Mr. Green, with Chris Green, about the veteran, and he still wants to do the parade for Veterans Day, and we're still working on that. It's been in contact with the VFW, American Legion, the DAV. I'd like to thank Congressman Shabbat, who brought lunch for all our police and fire last week. It was fantastic. And just the entire township has been great throughout this. And it's been, I think Mr. Mills said nobody wants this over more than him. I guess I'd add my voice to that. I'm now 16 days into a quarantine, and I've had a fever for 13 out of 16 days, and it's exhausting. In addition, Mr. Green has also sent out flag choices for the trustees to look at, and we can talk about that as well. But just my message to people is just please, it's working. If you take a look at the numbers of Ohio versus a lot of other states, and this is not going to be a sprint; it's going to be a marathon, and we're going to have to make choices with other people in mind, and that's the important thing. So God bless everybody, and that will probably be the quickest trustee report I'll ever give. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I have a short trustee report. We're doing our best to keep life as normal as possible. One of the things that happened at the beginning of all this was the election date of March 17th got canceled about 10 hours before the polls were scheduled to open. I would remind everybody within earshot that you can apply for an absentee. Go to the Board of Elections website, download the ballot application, get it filled out. It's dated March 17th, but it's the one you should use. Get it filled out, get it mailed over to 4700 Smith Road, which is the address they go to, and the Board of Elections will mail you an absentee ballot. That's how this election is going to be conducted. I believe they all need to be in by April 27th, and today's the 14th, and I dropped off mine at the 24-hour box there last night, and there were 15 people in the parking lot at 7 o'clock. So the Board of Elections is working overtime to get all these handled, but I would, if you want to vote in this election, don't wait much longer. Exercise your right to vote. When I got home last night, I found in my front door, and let me take a step backwards. It's a little bit different during the public citizen address process to actually read these comments printed out. And there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of people are in a bad way. Folks that have house payments, businesses that have mortgage payments, and guess what? They missed their March and April payment, and then people are struggling. And I read these citizen comments, and I sense there's a couple Facebook groups that aren't getting along. Now, anybody who knows me, I do not go on social media. It's not my thing. I would rather talk to people. That's why I give out my cell phone number at meetings, 404-3057. I would do anything I can to help you, but I'm going to ask these two groups to lay down their sword for a little while anyway. Obviously, I'm just not on Facebook. I don't have the time for it. But anyway, when I got home from the Board of Elections last night, in my front door of my home, and you're supposed to send stuff to the township or email it in, was a 22 police reports referencing a specific address in the township. Now, I'm going to ask Raj and Matt right now if somebody dropped those off at their house too. Did you get any such thing, Raj or Matt?
No.
Okay, well, I will make sure that you get a copy of these, and I will put them in your mailbox or have Jeff scan them to you, only because I think we should all have the same information. Now, whoever's doing that, please leave me out of it. I don't have any desire to get in the middle of a Facebook war between these groups, and I would ask both those groups to try to see the other person's position on things and try to, can't we all just get along, as Rodney King would say, can't we all just get along? On the brighter side, walking the parks, we have been out, and just today I walked the Main Street Trail, and I've been in Colerain Park a number of times, and at the end of the Main Street Trail is Clifford Park. We have walked laps around Northgate Mall in the big parking lot outside. We have walked. I've walked 4 different township subdivisions. With everything closed, go out and get some exercise. And maybe this isn't the best way to incentivize somebody to do it, to have the big COVID shutdown. Get out and see all the great things that we have here. I know my wife took my mother down to Heritage Park and walked that, and we have a small staff that's maintaining those parks, and they're doing a fabulous job. The last thing in my trustees report is Jeff Baker's our new fiscal officer. It's we're coming off of the last 2 fiscal officers we had served 16 years, and the one before 16 years. And so Jeff's going to come in and get his feet on the ground and get settled in, and he's an elected official, and he can kind of run things the way he wants from a fiscal officer point of view. But I'd have to say, Jeff, I'm a little bit disappointed in some of the attacks that have already been levied at you, and you're only in this for day 14. To that end, and in fairness to you, last year, when our previous recently left fiscal officer was attacked in an email, the person who sent me that asked me to, hey, go back to 1997 and see how I used to do it, and you'll see a lot. And so what I did from June till about November last year was every other meeting I was bringing in my review of the minutes from 97, 98, 99, all the way through March of 2004. And I found a lot of stuff about the way things were done by this person. So just for documentation purposes, and you can pick this up COVID safely after the meeting, I'd like you to have this. It's just a summary of my report. There's some good things, there's some other things, and I'll just put it right there. So everybody, pick up the phone, call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. If you see your elderly neighbor's grass is getting a little long, cut it. Reach out to somebody you haven't talked to. This will be over soon enough. Speaking for myself, and I hope for the township, when they give the go-ahead to get some businesses reopened, we will do everything we can to get out of businesses' way and let them make the best decision of how to restart their operations. I know so many of you are struggling. I hope, I'm afraid that 10 or 20% of people might never reopen, and I'm very concerned about all that. I'm sure my fellow trustees share those concerns. This is really tough. Anything this township can do to help you, please reach out to us. And that will conclude my trustees report, and let's move into new business.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. The first items in new business are in the Public Services Department, and we'll bring Ms. O'Connell back to deliver those reports.
Hello again. Okay, I've got a couple things going on here tonight. I'll try to be brief. The first is I'd like to recommend adoption of a motion to approve the Common Circle head wall repair contract. As you know, we sent that out for bid in February. We got it back March 18th. We received 5 bids. The Masters Group was the lowest bid. They're out of Northern Kentucky. Their bid was $53,317. This item was included in the 2020 budget. Therefore, I'd like to ask you to make a motion to approve the contract for the Common Circle head wall repair.
I would motion that we approve the contract for the Common Circle head wall repair.
I will second that, Waller.
It's been motioned by Unger and seconded by Wallert. Is there any discussion? I did notice those prices came in a little bit lower than what we had budgeted.
A
But I
little
think
bit.
there's more work to do once we get that head wall out and see what's actually behind it. So
Yes, we are expecting another phase of this project. So this is the head wall piece. The other piece will be actually repairing the pipe. So, but these prices were much better than we had anticipated. So we're very happy with that.
great. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, Dan. Jackie, the group, the bid is selected. Do you know anything about that group, the masters group, their quality of work?
Yes, actually, we called their references. Since we had not worked with them before and neither had JMA, we contacted them for a list of references. So they provided us not only numerous different people to talk to, but numerous projects that they had been involved with. They're out of Northern Kentucky, and they've done a lot of work for KDOT, the Kentucky Department of Transportation, who gave them a great recommendation for their masonry work.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Mills.
Actually, we'll stick with Ms. O'Connell here.
Yep, you got me for a few more times, Mr. Unger. I would like to recommend the adoption of a motion to purchase a zero-turn mower for the Parks Department at a price not to exceed $11,839. I know, Mr. Waller, that probably gives you heart palpitations, but it is a great price for a mower. Our mowers last quite a long time. This was evaluated as part of the 2020 budget. It is part of the state contract pricing. It is replacing a mower that is 14 years old and has over 3,000 hours and is no longer functional. So I would like you to make a motion to purchase the capital equipment, please.
I will motion that we approve the purchase of that capital equipment.
I second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. Very quickly, Jackie, she probably already guessed my question. Not functional means it's not running at all?
Correct.
All right, I was going to try to buy another 2 weeks out of you till we got more information on what was going on. Thank you. That answers it.
Okay.
Or any other discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, Jackie.
My last one is a little bit of revenue, and I'm going to do that much with you folks, but I'd like to recommend the approval of a resolution authorizing the disposal of surplus items valued at $2,500 or less. We've got 6 vehicles and pieces of equipment, so 4 pieces of equipment and 2 vehicles in the Public Services Department that we'd like to dispose of via GovDeals public auction site. They didn't have any trade-in value, so we're hoping to at least get a little bit of return on them by auctioning them off online. So I would ask you to please pass a motion to approve the Public Services vehicles and equipment for auction, please.
Also move, Waller.
I will
I second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none,
Yep.
Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
I think
Yeah.
Mr. Waller.
Just, yeah, very quickly. Is that stuff stored outside now or is it undercover?
I believe it's a little of each.
Okay.
So some of the stuff is still in barns and storage areas.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, Jeff Mills.
Thank you, Jackie. The next 3 items are in the Department of Planning and Zoning, and Department Director Mike Gaiona will deliver those.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. I have a couple items for you this evening. The first is a motion to award a tactical urbanism grant for an amount not to exceed $500 to construct a community garden. The tactical urbanism plan is something that the township adopted over a year ago. And the goal is really to make small scale improvements to the environment, to create vibrancy and build connectivity and foster social connections within a community. The current application is to seek a temporary, the current application is to set up a community garden with the intention that it could potentially become a permanent asset. And the proposal is for a street, Amarillo Court. It's located in the Northbrook neighborhood. And the $500 allotment would go towards buying seeds, plants, and supplies for the garden. The application states that there are a number of residents who are interested in contributing to the project. And their hope is that ultimately this project is going to transform an existing vacant lot in the community into a place that builds vibrancy, fosters social connections, and brings that part of Northbrook up. All of the activities on the site will be conducted in accordance with the policies and procedures allocated by the Department of Public Services. The site that they've chosen is a site that was identified within the Northbrook plan as a site as a site with high potential for increasing vibrancy, and a site that was selected for use of this type. With the COVID-19 epidemic coming up that we're going through, implementing a community garden at this time, may or may not be feasible by the time we come through the other side of this. If you all award this tonight, staff promises to monitor and continue to monitor the spending of these funds. The way that we carried out the rainy day or the previous grant application for the sidewalk paint that showed up when it rained is the same way that we would follow up with this. And in that situation, as well as this one, we worked with the applicant to make sure that was going to be a viable project. We worked with them to do all the spending. We were right there with them. This isn't something where we just cut a check, close our eyes, and then turn our back. It's something that we continue to work with these applicants to make sure that the project's successful. And at the end of the year, or at the end of the cycle of the project, we would come back to you all with hopefully what would be a successful outcome and a successful report of how well the grant worked. So staff is recommending that you all make a motion to award the Tactical Urbanism Grant for an amount not to exceed $500 to construct a community garden.
I would motion that we award a tactical urbanism grant as described.
I'll second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Mike, that is a great program. When I was in the probation department, I piloted the program like this over the Ryan. The summertime, the kids live in the neighborhood. They will go and grow garden. They produce so much vegetable stuff. They will take the vegetables to the Finley market and sell it to them. Number one, these children, they have something to do during the summertime. Also, they take pride in the community and build a good environment. And it is like telling other people, showing to other people, hey, I'm taking pride to build this community. $500 is not much money, it's a grant money, but the outcome is going to bring, it's amazing to the community. It's telling everyone, hey, let us protect our neighborhood. Let's build this, make it a green, green place, a green, productive place, and telling other people not to, destroy this land, whatever the piece of land they have, make it worthwhile to produce some vegetables and help the community. I love this program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Is there any other discussion?
None.
None from I. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, Mike.
All righty, the next item is a motion to authorize the township's administrator to execute a contract for nuisance abatement. One of the key components of our code enforcement is the ability to abate tall grass and weeds violations through our abatement process. The abatement process allows the township to bring a property in violation into compliance through the use of an outside contractor. The cost of bringing the violation into compliance, both staff time as well as the cost of the vendor to complete the project, are assessed in a lump sum on the tax bill of the property owner. The proposed contract will allow staff to hire a reputable contractor to complete these abatements. DW's Lawn and Landscape is the vendor that we've selected to serve as the vendor to complete this abatement process. DW's Lawn and Landscape has been contracted previously by the township for these abatements, and they produced nothing but exceptional results, and they provided us with exceptional service. The great thing about this contract is that it would lock in the price of $80 per abatement, which is what we had in 2019. Not only in the year 2020, but that $80 would be locked in through the year 2022. So staff is recommending that you will adopt this motion and allow the township administrator to execute this contract with DW's Lawn and Landscape for nuisance abatement services.
I would motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute a
I second it.
to execute the contract for nuisance abatement. Yes, and Raj, I motioned and Raj seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, one thing I like about the contract, and the people who give contract, they carry $1 million liabilities for anything happen while they're doing it. So the township is, away from all this liability suit and everything else. So it's a good thing to have a contract like that.
Thank you.
Discussion?
None.
Hearing none, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Very good. Mr. Iona, I will take the next item here. The next item is a motion authorizing and directing staff to reimburse the owner of 6384 Conifer Lane for a special assessment. You'll recall at our last meeting in March, at the citizens address portion of that meeting, Mr. Larry Pete provided you with comments about a time when he was assessed for having tall grass. He'd been for 12 to 16 months prior to last month, and done an awful lot of research on this. It appears that the township followed all of the protocol for tall grass and weeds. We went out, we received a violation complaint. We went out, confirmed the violation, had several emails back and forth with Mr. Pete explaining the situation, and ultimately we abated it. We cut the grass, and just like with everybody else that doesn't cut their grass, we assessed that cost to his taxes. At the last meeting, Mr. Pete asked that the trustees consider reimbursing him for that assessment, and the trustees directed staff to put it on this agenda, which is why it is here. The staff recommendation is denial of the motion, only because we have the potential for a slippery slope situation where anybody who wants to come in and ask for the assessment to be reduced or reimbursed would be able to point to this as precedent. And given that we believe that we followed all of our procedures, we think that's a bad precedent to set. But that's our recommendation.
I will go ahead and motion that we authorize and direct staff to reimburse the owner of 6384 Conifer Lane for a special assessment. And I'd appreciate a second so we can at least get it to the floor and have a discussion.
I'll second Waller.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mills, there was an appeal process that the time windows expired. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. When somebody is issued a notice of violation, they have a period of time to appeal that to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that's the appeals process.
Okay.
Yes, yes, you are correct, Jeff. Mr. Pete has been on this for a long period of time. At the time, I went out, and it's out there off Daleview Road, and I drove out and took a look at it. I had been there twice since, and I was there this afternoon before this meeting. I went out and looked at it one more time. The property's in great condition. It's and then at our last meeting when Mr. Pete was here during the citizens comment portion, and we were discussing this, and I said, well, fine, we'll just put it on the next agenda and give you an up or down vote. And at the time, I said, you know, we did send our grass cutter over, and we already paid him. So I don't know how much of this, if we're talking about an amount that we would reimburse or whatever, but I would be against reimbursing him because we already paid our grass cutter. Now, there's another part of that, and that's the administrative fee. And I looked at this, and I looked back to when we approved it, and apparently it kind of coincided with a time that the property was for sale or had recently been purchased. And I know there may have been some comments made by a former person in the zoning department that had been a long time problem property. And Mr. Pete argued at the last meeting that that was before I owned it. So my inclination would be to, I don't know if we're talking about an amount or all the amount and part of the amount, but my inclination would be we're not going to reimburse the grass cutting cost, but I'd certainly be willing to consider reimbursing the administrative fee that goes with it, just based on numerous conversations with him, 4 trips over there in the last year and a half, and just some changes that were going on here at the time that things might have got a little lost in the shuffle. I'm certainly would love to hear if the other trustees have a comment, and then we can have the up or down vote. So,
Jeff, in this motion, like Dan said, I can agree with Dan. Maybe the administrative cost, we don't know how much was it. How do you modify this motion? Just let's waive the administrative cost, but not to agree with you that this we cannot. He has to pay the grass cutting charges, whatever he charged it to be assessed on his property. How's that? How that? You going to change the motion, or how do you going to do that?
are we talking about an amount to reimburse, or it would be my idea to reimburse the administrative fee, but go ahead and charge him whatever the fee was that we paid the grass cutting vendor, because the grass did get cut, and so I'm not going to reimburse that part of it.
Sure. So I believe the total amount assessed was $430, and as Mr. Iona just pointed out, the cost to cut grass, I believe, was $80. It was certainly $80 last year. It was very close to that in 2018. I suppose if you wanted to make a motion to reimburse, and we've already collected that, so it's been assessed. He's paid it, so now we would be the administrative portion of that $400, which is 430 minus 80.
And is that, and Larry might know the answer to this, is that something that we would send to him in the form of a check, or is it something that we would have to send through the auditor, because I wouldn't want to incur any more administrative expense?
We looked at this, and he already paid.
This
He
agenda.
already paid off the assessment.
I'm sorry, Larry. I was talking over you. You can. Will you do that again?
Go ahead, Larry.
Yes, we looked into this, and he has already paid off the assessment. So I think any money that would be directed to him would be paid directly to him in a check. And you're going to have to move to amend, or either vote on this motion and go up and vote it down, or move to amend your motion to just have reimbursed for the administration fee.
So I will so it's been motioned and seconded to get it to the floor. I will go ahead and motion to amend that motion just for the administrative portion of the fee to be paid to the owner of the property by check, but not the grass cutting cost. And I guess we need to know what that, let's say it's, I thought it was actually more than $80. I thought it was 130. You think it was 80?
Yeah, I think it might have been maybe even less than 80, but we'll find out.
Well, let's put an amount on it. Was it 430 minus 80 would be 350? The way it's in the record of what the amount was.
Very good. 350.
I would motion to amend that we would reimburse the owner $350 of the fee. And that's just based on, there was a lot of stuff going on in our zoning department. The property had just changed hands, I guess, at some point before that, and there had been previous problems with the previous owner. And so I motion to amend that we would send him $350, but not the full amount he's requesting. I guess I need a second for that.
I'll second it, Dan.
So did you second it, Raj?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
No,
Was that a yes or a no?
no.
Okay, so that's a no for Waller, yes for Raj, yes for Unger.
Very good.
Okay, Jeff Mills, next item.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Unger, we now have to vote on the new amended. We have to vote on the new amended. That was just voting on the amendment.
Larry?
There was a,
Got two
I think
motions.
I think he made an amended motion, it was seconded, and then you voted on the amended motion.
So there's only one vote on it, and it's a vote on the amended motion.
Right.
Is that how you wanted to vote, Matt? Was no?
Well, yeah, but I think you have to vote. I was under the impression you vote on the amendment and then you vote on the new motion.
Larry, don't you have to vote to amend the motion and then vote on the amended motion? So there
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I thought that's what they did, but you can vote again if you want.
Okay. Yeah, there was just one. I think there was just one vote, right?
Right.
I think there's just one vote because it's only on the agenda once.
Okay. We'll leave it. Larry, whatever you think, man.
Why don't you vote again? Why don't you vote again on the amended motion?
Okay, I asked to amend the motion that the amount would be $350 and not the whole 430, and Rod seconded it.
And
Yeah,
that motion,
I think what the controversy is, Dan, is that Matt is saying that he believes he was only voting as to whether he agreed that the motion could be amended. And now there's been a vote that says the motion could be amended. So now there would be a vote on the amended motion.
Right.
So the vote that the motion could be amended was yes, yes, and no for Matt Waller. So
Right.
then I guess Jeff Baker asked for another vote on the motion as amended. Is that correct, Larry?
Yes.
Okay. So call the roll on the amended motion.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Yes?
Mr. Waller.
No.
Okay, so that's 2 yeses and a no. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item, Jeff Mills.
very good. The next items come from the administration. The first one is a resolution to remove Hamilton County parcel number 510-013-0251 from the Kroger TIF site. It is my understanding, actually this was pointed out by the treasurer of the Northwest Local School District, that there is a parcel, namely I just named, which is everyone will know it as the Chick-fil-A parcel across from the that was erroneously included in the Kroger TIF. We reached out to Mr. Barbier's firm, and John Dieters did some digging into this. My understanding is the township filed a form called a DTE form, which listed all the parcels that should be included in the TIF district. Subsequently, Kroger filed a DTE form with the Hamilton County Auditor that had all of them listed. And my understanding is that the Kroger form erroneously listed the Chick-fil-A parcel as part of the Kroger TIF district. It is in fact not. I believe there was a question earlier by Ms. Goggle that I believe it was Ms. Goggle that asked, was this to our benefit or was it to our detriment? Probably to our benefit. I'm not sure the extent to which it was to our benefit, and I'm not sure the extent to which there's a remedy, like as in, do pay it back? They need to, or does it just move forward? The TIF district is corrected. But the first step is to get the TIF district parcel numbers right, and that is accomplished with this resolution. Resolution to remove Hamilton County parcel number 510-0103-51 from the Kroger site. Approved.
Remove Hamilton County parcel number 510-0103-0251 from the Kroger TIF site.
I'll second that, Waller.
Motioned by Unger, seconded by Wallert. Is there any discussion?
No.
None.
Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
All right.
Motion carries. Next item, Jeff Mills.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution to amend the organizational chart and roster. This item, the Colerain Board of Trustees maintains a formally adopted organizational chart, and it has with a position roster for all roles that are employed within the township. The existing org chart and position roster contains several roles in the planning department, including the seasonal code enforcement officer and seasonal and code enforcement specialist. Mr. Iona prepared a description of a new way to organize that department and the work that they do in code enforcement, essentially eliminating the seasonal code enforcement officer who was detailed was detailed 100% to tall grass and weeds, and to change that role from seasonal code enforcement officer to permanent part-time, which would allow that person to work 12 months out of the year. Hours a week is pretty close to what they would be working. And it looks like a small reduction in cost as well. So we get more hours, and we're paying less money. It's a new operational framework that Mr. Iona has developed, and the recommendation is to approve.
I motion that we amend the organizational chart and roster as Mr. Mills just described.
I'll second.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Dan. Jeff, this part-time seasonal specialist is provided all the benefits, all the township benefits?
For the benefits to the so there'd be more hours of code enforcement and less cost. And it's a different way of organizing the code enforcement resources. So Mr. Iona would like to move to a beat structure, so that you have one code enforcement officer that is responsible for a particular geography. And in that way, that code enforcement officer can get to know the area. They can remember, hey, I don't remember there was a shed there last week, and now I see a shed there. That's a zoning violation. They also get to know the usual suspects or the frequent flyers, and can build relationships that hopefully will allow for better outcomes. So that's the idea, and Mike developed that after living through the current code enforcement structure. I support it 100%.
Jeff, my question is, are they get all the township benefits? They're only part-time employee or the specialist, what do you call it? Are they eligible for are we paying for all the benefits?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
The township benefit, work. Go ahead.
I apologize. No, they are not eligible for township benefits. So they're part-time, permanent part-time.
Okay.
No benefits.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Raj, did you have another point?
No. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think this is so so simple, but fantastic. It cuts down the learning curve on training somebody every summer. It's cheaper. And in response to the one citizen comment that said that there's an asymmetric use of hours, well, that's something that Mr. Iona can dig deep and find, hey, we need to redistribute the beat a little bit. I think it shows a unique creativity in moving the system forward and changing the bureaucratic method, and I really like that. I think I think it makes it more fluid and it's more responsive to the needs on the ground, and I love it.
Is there any other discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Very good. And we will post that position right away if it's okay with the board. Okay. The next item is a resolution authorizing the adoption of an alternative method of apportioning the local government fund. I had to do some research on this to understand what was going on. But prior to 1989, there was a different method of distributing the local government. Led to repeated litigation and a lot of uncertainty in budgeting for local governments. To address this issue, the local governments in 1989 agreed upon this alternative methodology, and it has been renewed in 1995, 2004, and 2012. It's up for renewal again here now. I've reached out to my counterparts in other communities, other townships, and it appears as though everyone is going to be supporting this. So the recommendation is to approve the resolution authorizing the adoption of an alternative method of apportioning the local government fund.
A motion that we authorize the adoption of an alternative method of apportioning the local government fund.
I will second, Waller.
Been motioned by Unger and seconded by Wallert. Is there any discussion?
None.
Just one quick question, Mr. Mills. I couldn't find 95, 04, and 12. It's essentially the same thing.
I believe it's verbatim.
Okay. I thought it was. I just couldn't find the artifacts to see if it was.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, board. The next item is a motion authorizing the township administrator to enter into a contract with Waycross for community services, or excuse me, for communication services. So there's a bit of a backstory on this agenda item. Communications has been identified as a weak area that the township needs to improve upon. We had a number of town hall meetings last year at the request of the board, and one of the things that we heard over and over again was we need to do a better job. And so first, there was a communications contractor, and we went out for quotes, I believe in 2018, for a communications contractor. We received one response to that, and the board chose not to execute that contract. And coming into this funding cycle, this fiscal year, it was proposed, there was a position proposed called a director of transparency, and that person, it was thought to have three jobs. One would be all the communications for the township. The second would be public records requests. And then the third would be to maintain all of our transparency data. So that have a full-time employee stationed within our org chart was not authorized. So, but in the discussion of the transparency director, it was suggested by the board to go out and try to find another. Well, actually, it was suggested to reach out to Waycross and see if they'd be willing to do this work. When we discussed procurement with our law director, he said, we have to do an RFP. The board authorized an RFP process. And, we received, and this RFP was a little different from the one we did 2 years ago. This one allowed for contractors to bid a la carte on I would like to be a part of the social media response for the township. Here's my bid on that. I would like to, develop multimedia communications. This is my bid on that, etc. We received one response to that RFP for communications and media consulting services, and that was from Waycross Media in the amount of $20,000, and they would just be providing social media services. They obviously provide services right now. We are on Waycross Media, as you all know, and that would not change. This would be an addendum to that contract in which they would take over our social media communications for the fee of $20,000 additional. So staff seeks trustee guidance on this motion, whether or not to execute the contract.
And I'll go ahead and motion to do that, to get it to the floor to discuss, for discussion.
I second it.
Motion to be seconded. Is there any discussion? And I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, Jeff. Is that for a specific number of hours? I thought at some point it was
20 a week.
It was dedicating a minimum of 20 hours per week for 52 weeks. Yep.
So it's 1,000 hours a year dedicated to you with the communications that you've been beating us on. I think the one last year was around 65 or 70,000. It was about 68,000 last year, when
With the last media consultants?
a year ago when we first talked about this.
The last media consultants, I believe that was 2 years ago, and it was about 60,000, but it was for the entire suite of communications needs. So that would be social media coordinator, graphic content production, written content production, and advisory communications and public relations. So that was the whole gamut. Then the next iteration was, okay, could we do it cheaper if we had somebody in-house? Could we get more done with less money? And that's when we incorporated the data and the public records into the communications role and called it transparency. So, and now we're.
And what was the estimated cost on that?
I believe that 55 or 60, it was probably 55 is what we're, or 60.
But that person would have been an employee?
Plus benefits.
Plus, so it would have been 50 plus benefits, which,
80,
is
90.
80. So now we're down to 20.
Yeah, just for
to handle the social media, which I don't follow social media, but I guess there's a lot of people that do. So that's what it's for. We've gone from 60 to 80 to 20. So is there any other discussion?
Yes. Then I got. We already paying a large amount of money, like broadcasting these meetings and everything, to Waycross Communication. 1 point. Second one, our township itself have a large, several venue of communicating our township information to the public. We have Facebook, we got Circle, all kinds of social media we have. And it is, people have the access to it. Only thing is the money we spend. We have one resident, she comes to the meeting all the time. She used to tell us, some other people don't have all the access to the electronics, or especially the senior citizens and computers, everything. Send them a letter once in a quarter. Send what's going on with the township. Let them know. Let them, send the newsletters. And she was a big propagation for this idea. I think we're spending $20,000 for already. We got great social media through the township. I think it's a waste of spending that money. Okay.
Any comments?
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, I'm kind of on the fence on this. A lot of it depends upon, where we're headed fiscally with the township. I would like to see this. I don't know if there's a date we need to get back and okay this, but I'd like to see it tabled till the next meeting.
That's probably not a bad idea, because we don't know what's going to happen next. So are you motioning to table?
Yes, sir. I am making a motion to table, as long as I guess I have to first ask Mr. Mills, does this, when's our get back date by to them?
I don't believe that we're required to make that decision tonight.
Okay.
Or
I'd motion, then I'll second your motion to table it for this meeting, and we'll see when it goes back on. So it's been motioned and seconded to table. Is that what we call for a vote on then? Okay. So is there any discussion on tabling it, Raj or Matt?
Yeah,
None.
Okay. Then Jeff Baker, please call for a vote to table that motion.
Mr. Rajagopal,
aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Motion's been tabled. Next item, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Item is a resolution extending the emergency declaration in Colerain Township. A previous emergency resolution was adopted by the Board of Trustees, and the recommendation is to extend that state of emergency in Colerain Township until April 30th. This is in alignment with the state of Ohio's stay-at-home order. So recommendation is to approve resolution or adopt a resolution declaring a state of emergency due to COVID-19.
I motion that we extend the emergency declaration in Colerain Township through April 30th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Through April 30th. Is there a second?
Aye.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
None from but I would remind people this allows us that some of these extra costs we are running into, such as for the fire and police responders and the different sanitizing and different safety equipment we have to buy. Hopefully this gives us the opportunity to attempt to recoup some of that. And that's why we have an emergency declaration.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, board. The next two items are items that were championed by trustees. Mr. Waller wanted to include a discussion of establishing business support programs.
Yes, so I can see we've already violated the idea of a short meeting now that we're into 3+ hours. I think that there are some townships and some municipalities, smaller municipalities, are trying to provide some kind of support for local businesses, especially if they maintain, if they have employees that live in the township or live in the area. And I guess my intent on this is to find some way that we could support those businesses. Maybe there's a grant available if you have a certain number of people from Colerain Township and you keep them employed, or some kind of, I don't know, some kind of small way that we could help out. The other thing I noticed, it was, and this would be much cheaper. For instance, somebody sent me a picture of this in Springfield Township. They have a big banner that has the places where you can eat there in Springfield Township, encourages people. I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing opportunities, because I think Mr. Unger is absolutely right that some of these businesses aren't going to open back up. And, the lifeblood of the American economy is small business. And I want to do, if we were in a position to help in any way, I want to do that.
Waller, a couple of examples that I've seen in the region. Columbia Township, for example, has given direct monetary assistance through their CIC to their small businesses. So they've actually established a grant program through their CIC to distribute grant funds to keep them open. And I believe that Springfield Township is also doing something similar. I'm not sure whether it's through their CIC or just through the Board of Trustees. But there are other examples out there. If the board would like, I can prepare sort of a report on what other communities are doing and make some, give you some options if you would like, to support businesses financially for doing so at the next meeting.
I think that would be a great idea. Anything we can, our existing infrastructure as far as our website and our circle, and different things we can do to maybe highlight a different business every day or whatever. Anything we could do to support business anytime,
Can,
especially.
sorry, I can add some comment. That's a great idea. Matt and Dan, we really need to support our local business. On the other hand, how much money we're going to spend, to for this? Is it through the grant? What the grant come from? Secondly, do we have, we talked about, we're going to take about loss of about $1.4 million anticipating because of the COVID, but what Jeff earlier told us, are all this, the county is cutting 20%, state is cutting 20%. Okay, now how are you going to fund this program? Number two, the federal government already come up with the program for the business. They're giving out like a forgivable loans. The lots of money is available. All small business can apply, which is forgivable loans, and also the other funding available through the state also. So I don't know how you're going to handle this. How much money is going to cost? You're talking about thousands of dollars.
Well, I mean,
money.
not necessarily. I mean, we could do something like Mr. Unger mentioned, focus on Circle on a local business, or, like the Springfield Township banner. I guess that's the point. If Mr. Mills comes back and says, look, we can't do this for less than $30,000, I'm like, well, thanks for your hard work. I'll pass.
Yeah,
If
Matt, I agree with you. It's not a bad idea to put a banners or make a promotion, help our local business. So where are we going to put that line? How far you can go and help the business? Because the federal government giving millions of, I think it's billions of dollars for the small business, the loans through the banks, which could be forgivable loans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a direct way of the small business can apply. Now, how the township has come apart, how much money ask Jeff Mills. Do you have any idea, Jeff?
I don't. But I can prepare a report that has multiple options with different funding levels. So, something that's based on the model that we see in Columbia Township or Springfield Township, and then maybe one that is based on sort of communications related publication, raising awareness of our businesses, something that costs little money.
I'd say go ahead and see what you come up with and bring it back at the next meeting
Very
for
good.
that item.
Sure.
Okay, and the next item is Trustee Raja Gopal wanted to discuss establishing local social service support programs.
Thank you, Jeff. We saw people suffer, especially senior citizens and people no income at all, how they go through this, the coronavirus situation, homeless. I got a prime example. This one resident in Colerain residents got no place to go about 3 weeks ago or something like that. No money, and it's kind-hearted. Matt Wallet is really took care of this person, and about 2 other people pitch in money so the person can temporarily live in a hotel till the other sources like homeless coalition, people like this can find a place for her to live. Now, our government, our township do service to our residents. When we do the social service program like this, we go one step higher, reaching out these people who really desperate need. They got no place to go, no place to live. Nobody to help them. I think we spend, I was looking at this appropriation thing. We are spending like a $617,150 for the community center, which is right right, Jeff. We dedicated for $617,150. This for the community center, which is also most of the money goes to the helping our senior citizens. We got a great program. I'm so proud of that program we have for the senior citizens. We can set aside a fragment of money, set aside our residents, Colerain residents. Anybody needs such a desperate situation like this now, COVID-19, anything situation comes like that. So we township move forward, help them temporarily, house them, or help them out, the short time till they find the place they can go and live. I think this is a program that we really help the people who really in need. That's what I call this. I spoke to Jeff Mills, and it will be a great program for the residents who are in desperate need.
I think, you finished, Raj?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this has kept me up nights as we go through this COVID-19 thing. As you turn on the news and you see people lined up, at food banks, and you see what the Northwest Local School District is doing, and you have this incredible desire for people to help, but it really seems like it's ad hoc. It's not. I mean, we organize everything in local governments, but we have no organized response for a disaster like this. And I just think it's because we don't. I guess it doesn't occur to us. About 15 years ago, I was speaking to somebody at FEMA about the fact that why is it every time September and October hit during hurricane season, we're struggling to get water and tide and stuff to the areas along the Gulf Coast or along the Atlantic? We know it's coming. And this person made an interesting point to me. In Mexico, which has much smaller amount of capital to work with in the United States, they had supply caches around the country for when this hits, so that they could then move things back and forth. So instead of, I don't know, like, one of the organizations from Cincinnati driving stuff down to Alabama when a hurricane hits, you have a depot with the stuff sitting there. So I guess overall, my point is, the thing that I've learned from COVID-19 is, I think the government, and this goes along with what you're suggesting, I think our township government needs kind of an arm, maybe it's a local church or something, to do this social outreach work when we have something exceptional like this. I mean, I sat here without power for 16 hours the other day, probably just dodged a tornado. What happens in those cases? And I think that if we want to make lemonade out of lemons, I think there's a way forward for this with what you're suggesting in having a way to address when there's just unforeseen circumstances and people are suffering, man. And I want to do something to help. And I think we can process this through, kind of maybe a faith-based initiative or something to work to find solutions. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Matt, you're a living example of it, Matt. You stayed at the hotel, make sure the person will get. You spent 4 hours. You spent 4 hours. You're a big man with a big heart. I'm telling you. But because you did it, I think us Colerain Township, we have to take care of our people need desperate help in a very dangerous situation like this. They have no place to go. And here we are spending $98,000 to beautifications and everything, make the door. I don't know how many millions it's going to cost to finish a project. Then again, we spending, like I said, we love seniors so much, take care of them. We're spending like $617,150 the appropriation, and set aside only a fragment, like you said, I agree with you. We will have a fragment of fund, for the people, like only for emergency situation like that. We can have like our administrator can assess that, help the person, and also collaboration with the faith-based organizations. So that'd be a set aside some type of program. We need to help these people at that time, the moment. It may take a week to find a place for the person to house or find a place, but otherwise the person will be on the street. That's a very critical. I think we are a compassion township. This township is known for coming together when the community, one person needs it. We've seen this in the past, and we need to keep that as the image of Colerain Township, very compassionate. We all in one community, help each other. This all the basic idea of me to, to bring this program for the township.
I agree.
Okay.
I think that's very commendable. I think faith-based organizations are marvelous, and it gives you a real opportunity to be personally generous and help out folks. For those that are in a bad way right now, and I'm sure there are many, I have a list of every organization in Hamilton County that helps people out, the faith-based organizations. And in fact, recently I sent that out to somebody over on Colerain Avenue that had somebody that needed some help. And these organizations are already established. They already have ways of determining who is a good candidate for assistance, and they kind of keep track of how much assistance they're providing, and it's all privately funded, and they do a real good job of qualifying candidates to make sure that the money's getting into the right hands to provide the most help. So if anybody needs that list, I think I've sent that to you in the past, and it has everybody from St. Vincent de Paul and all these other wonderful organizations built up and developed over such a long period of time. And if you're in an immediate need for help, please let us know, and I will get that to you somehow. Email is very convenient and quick, but if you don't have access to that, let us know, and we'll figure out how to get you connected to that marvelous list of well-established faith-based organizations and different groups that help out with everything from abused women's shelters to emergency food needs to emergency disaster need and just everything that's out there. So there's already a list compiled of groups that can help. I've personally gone out of pocket on my own to help out a few people in the township that were in a bad way, and I would encourage anybody that sees somebody in need to help them out on a personal level. It's pretty rewarding, and if you're able to do that, great. And if you're not, please contact us. And we have an established list of all the organizations that'll provide help.
Dane, you're right. You're right. There are organizations there. Even Jeff Mills tried it. That for the person, tried several things. At the time, nobody's offering. At the time, because of the coronavirus situation like that, nobody could help at the moment. And you talk about at least a week, the person will be on the street, and then again, our resident, Rich McWay, contributed some money. And also, his wife, Ellie, also tried called many places at the time, no place taking. I also contributed. But this is a situation where very short time, not days, a couple of days, few days, maybe a week. We need anybody desperately need the help. We need to reach out to help that person. Because when we call every places, everything is shut off. That's the kind of situation we need to reach out to help those people, pull them out. That's the whole meaning of it.
Would you like me to handle one in the same way as the establishing business support programs by sort of researching different program, what different programs look like in different communities and bringing you some options to consider at the next meeting?
I think that's a great idea, Jeff Mills.
Very good. All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is old business. It's the policy book discussion, and I'd like to invite Mr. Weckbach to lead this conversation.
Hello, everybody. This is something that we spent some time on at a prior meeting in a work session. And for sake of brevity, included in the packet is an update from that meeting that includes some information and additional details. There's also a couple of draft documents based on your direction. But, from my personal perspective, there's still a number of items that I know that we would really appreciate and value your direct input and policy guidance on. And so the recommendation from staff is to schedule an additional work session before taking action on this. Certainly, if you all feel comfortable having us just drafting more policies, we can do that as well. But, our recommendation is to have another work session on the topic.
I agree with that. I agree with that idea.
And we can do digital work session, right?
I'll defer to Larry, but I believe that if this is okay, I don't see why that would not be okay.
I'm sure you can do a digital work session, yes.
Because, I got the Zoom app now. I really have to use it a couple times.
No, you look so good too, so yes.
Yeah, I'm for that. Mr. Unger, I don't know where you are on that.
Trustee, executive session chambers hunting down some water. Here he comes. All right. Just a sec. All right.
Go ahead.
Mr. Unger, are you okay with having a work session to discuss the policy book and to get?
Well, certainly, that would be great. Do we need to wait till the end of COVID to do that, or?
It is completely your discretion. It depends on how quickly you would like to move through these policy updates.
I will offer that it may be difficult to implement if a policy change requires wholesale changes to how we do some of our operations. That may be a little challenging to implement during COVID, but just something for consideration.
I think we should schedule it for May, when hopefully this is some of the restrictions.
Sounds good. So we'll put it on the first regular trustee meeting in May as a work session at 6 o'clock. Is that what we're thinking?
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Weckbach. Appreciate it. Right, the next set of items, board, is they are all on the consent agenda. I'll just roll through those quickly. I signed a contract with Cincinnati State for the partnership agreement for our paramedic program. I partnered with Cincinnati State for a long time, and that's a real testament to the quality of training that Colerain Township Fire provides, that Cincinnati State would be willing to provide. There is a donation acceptance, $10 donation acceptance from Kimberly Sizemore in appreciation of a police officer in her car. There is a contract that I signed with Integrated Engineering to create an application for the safety grant that we discussed earlier in the meeting today. This is the safety grant that would build a sidewalk on Pippin Road. There's also a contract with Buckeye Power Systems for generator maintenance.
Power system repair.
Oh, did I miss one? And a contract with Protect suppression system repair. There is a contract with Winelco. They are environmental contractors. This is for sewage treatment system maintenance at our facilities. There's a contract for with Mr. Flammers, Greg Flammers, for sidewalk inspection service related to the sidewalk improvement program There are 3 part-time hires in the Public Services Department to get geared up for grass season. Public Services Department is recommending the hiring of Jeffrey Payne Jr. At $12.50 an hour, Bigner at $12 an hour, and Mariah Balmer at $12 an hour. The idea is that these are returning staff. They know how to do the job. We'd like to lock them in. It would not start until physical distancing requirements are lifted, but we are seeking the authorization to fill those positions. I also signed an MOU with AFSCME Local 3553, which waives grievance time limits until April 30th. This just takes a little bit more out of our lives right now. If there were to be a grievance, it would pause the contractual date such that neither side would harmed if a grievance were filed. And then the board has approved in our chart a new position this year called a receptionist. We received an enormous number of candidates, over 200 candidates. Mr. Weckbach led that selection process, and we ended up with Debbie Potzner as the candidate that we are recommending. The rate of pay for this job is $15 an hour for 40 hours per week, year-round. This position, as indicated in the packet, is a full-time position, permanent, FLSA non-exempt, and it's non-CPA. It's not unionized. Again, the idea is that this person would not start, Ms. Potzner would not start until after the COVID-19 restrictions have passed. We just don't want to lose her to another job. And finally, there is an authorization requested to promote and hire a part-time employee firefighter, emergency technician, Mr. Peter Lavas, as a full-time employee. We had a resignation in Mr. Lang, who has resigned, and we would like to promote Mr. Lavas from part-time to full-time. He would begin his employment at $47,733 during his first full year of employment, and it would be contingent upon the successful completion of all applicable pre-employment evaluations and procedures. His start date would be effective as soon as possible after Sunday, April 19th. Obviously, we do not want to wait until the COVID restrictions are released to hire this firefighter. You would have to comply with all the conditions that I just mentioned. You'll recall that items on the consent agenda, the contracts are placed on the consent agenda as a matter of transparency. You've already authorized me to sign contracts under $10,000 or less. All those contracts fit that bill. And then the hiring process is contingent upon your approval. But in order to expedite the meeting, we put all these on the consent agenda, which means that you can authorize all of them with one motion. So the motion that we recommend is a motion to adopt all the items on the consent agenda.
I will motion that we adopt the items on the consent agenda.
I second it. Go ahead.
So Raj, did you second?
Yes.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? And I'll start off with, as far as the receptionist position and the part-time parks labor, those would not start until the next pay period after COVID ends, because if it ends on April 30th, and we start these people May 1st and something else happens, I would prefer that it'd be at your discretion, but I wouldn't bring them in 2 hours after it ends. I would wait a week or two, just because of whatever reason. We are in some strange times right now, and I wouldn't want to bring somebody in, have them work 3 days, and have the governor shut it down again. So any other discussion?
No.
No, none.
Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. This has been a historic meeting, and I think that you guys handled it with grace, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, and we'll move on to our next item, which is fiscal office report. Jeff Baker.
Thank you, board. First thing I just want to get out of the way is that we received a liquor control license for First Watch. I have discussed it with Mr. Iona, and there doesn't seem to be any opposition or any objection to granting this, so it's been scanned and we'll be sending that on. And then I just want to address, I guess, first of all, to say I'm excited and ready to go and glad that we're finally here. But it's weird to look out and see nobody in the audience. So
I'll overcome that when there's 70 people out there a month from now. So
I don't doubt that. But I do want to address, kind of give it just a kind of a heads up to, the status of me getting, my feet wet and getting everything ready to go. And I don't necessarily intend on reinventing the wheel, but, there is going to be some time where I figure out, how, I feel like it's going to be best for me to do the job and to figure out, all of, the priorities and so on. But just to give an update, there have been, since my first day of April 1st, there have been 22 public records requests. And just to put that into perspective, that's more than I would say probably 80% of the townships in Ohio get in a year. So we will be working on those to get those done, as well as anything that we can do in the past with the outstanding requests that are out there. It's kind of a unique time we're in now. I'm new. There's a pandemic going on. The minutes are very long, but I will do my best to address all of the public records requests in what I see as a reasonable amount of time, which is what the Ohio Revised Code requires. I do want to say that, if there are instant messages or emails that are sent direct to me, it will take me a lot longer to address those if I'm able to at all. But certainly, public records requests would be, the best way to, the official way to do that would be the best way to get those done. So, having said that, I look forward to serving Colerain for the next 8, 12, 16, however many years. I look forward to it. I will do my best, and please be patient with me. And hope to see this room full very shortly. So that's all I have.
thank you, Jeff. I'm going to take a second and mention one other news item. And it's a sort of a public notice we received from Duke Energy earlier in the meeting. There was a discussion of the property at Blue Rock and Livingston. And what's going on there is Duke is upgrading their infrastructure and putting in a gas main switching station there. And they have notified us that on Tuesday, April 21st, weather permitting, you are going to hear that gas main that exists be powered down. I have heard this before. It is as loud as a jet engine. So anybody in the area of Blue Rock and Livingston on Tuesday, April 21st, you are liable to smell natural gas and you are liable to hear a very loud noise. It says here in the notice that it could be between 30 minutes and 2 hours to complete. Those mains provide great service because they're operated at a very high pressure. So there's enough pressure way out at the ends of the system where it actually goes into your appliances. It's great that Duke's making an investment in our community. We all love having natural gas and electric, and I'm pleased that they've chosen to invest here. I believe it replaces a system that's over in Green Township at Race and Remlin with some new, very modern equipment. Thank you to Duke Energy for making an investment in our community. I'm going to ask Jeff to put something out on Circle so that we don't get a bunch of calls April 21st, wondering what's going on. So we'll watch for that. And with that, with more items, I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Unger. Mr. Unger.
Yes, sir.
Very quickly, if I could add, if you and Mr. Rajgopal could get back to Mr. Green on the banners that you like so that we can put those up for, those are banners to be celebrating veterans during Veterans Day. And we can have that available for the next meeting. If you take the top 2 or 3, and maybe we could decide the next meeting, but let him know, and then he'll forward us the information.
I agree with it. Go ahead.
I saw an email to that effect. I will take another look at it.
Thank you. That's it. Sorry.
So do I have a motion for adjournment?
Yes, sir. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Waller has motioned and I will second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote for adjournment.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Welcome, Jeff. Aye.
Yeah, it's good. Right.
The Colerain Township Board of Trustees is adjourned at 10:50 p.m. on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.